Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the Barbie movie, Steven Crowder, and gender roles. Not necessarily in that order, but yeah, we'll see what order they pop up in my head. But anyways, I was gonna do a second Mandalorian video, but I figured might as well switch things up. Even though I'll probably come back to some topics relating to the things I was talking about last week. But Barbie movie, if you haven't, you know what that is, right? Everybody knows what this is. You don't know what Barbie is? What rock do you live under? So I don't think I need to explain that one. But there is a Barbie movie coming, obviously, with Ryan Gosling and the Margot Robbie, obviously, as Barbie, and very yellow plastic roller skates will be also starring in the Barbie movie. I didn't actually make any comments about this previously, so I figured I would at least chime in a bit on both the movie as well as some of the other things happening that you can see on screen. Um, we'll start with the lighter topics. I know the hottest one is in the middle, with kind of things that are going on with a particularly nasty so-called podcaster. I don't know what these people are calling themselves these days, but and his kind of nasty behavior. So we'll get to that topic, and what that has to do with what that also has to do with straight Western culture, which is fundamentally toxic. So I figure, like, on this video, I've been talking. I brought it up occasionally. That I've been thinking more about gender, my gender specifically, and where that like intersects with also myself I'm a native Hawaiian as well, and so as an indigenous person, we had different gender roles. That's one of the things that I will get back to. We had different conceptions of gender, and like what even is gender, is of it's actually it's not as simple as some people would like it to like to make it seem. Obviously there's a lot of talk about the speaking of the United States and places like that, there's a huge push to basically put all of that back in the quote unquote closet. And like, in putting it in the closet, I mean, there's multiple obviously connotations, right? Putting things in the closet means like putting your drag clothes, putting your gender non-conforming, right, gender role breaking clothes back in the closet. Just dress the way that we're supposed to dress. And what is the way you're supposed to dress? Well, if you're a man, you're supposed to not. Well, I mean, so actually, if you look at this picture, Ryan Gosling is already breaking his gender role, kind of, right? He's wearing pink. The kind of creepazoid incel hyper posture neophrenologist would probably point out that Ryan Gosling is slanting his body and facing Margot Robbie's female character, signifying his loss of power, giving up his power to her, making all kind of lines and, measuring the circumference of his skull probably, and I mean, like, this picture is violating, our, patriarchal, normal society. Normal society is when men are in power. Normal society is when women are subservient. Like Steven Crowder was saying, do your wifely duties. Do your wifely duties, right? I don't, just gaslighting and gaslighting. Right? So Ryan Gosling is actually violating Steven Crowder. I would argue that's normal Western culture, though. That's just normal, certainly European, certainly American, certainly Canadian culture. Period. Just the average culture. Conservative, absolutely, but I mean, really, the whole culture is that way. Because I'm in a very liberal place, right? In the United States, Hawaii's the bluest of blue states. It's like that here too. It's not really any different. So it's not really the GOP conservative Christians, although they emphasize it even more maybe. But that's just normal Western culture, is that certain people have to be in charge, and those people are the people that are a particular kind of masculine male gender, and also gender and your gender and your sex, right? Your gender and like what kind of genital you have, all that stuff is absolutely very strict and very much unquestionable, right? So, like I said, this it is like there's a lot of things to untangle when you were talking about gender. There's also you can't really deal with gender without dealing with culture. You know, that's another thing I want to come back to, which is to say like, what is Ken, right? I'm trying to tie this back into Barbie, but like, what is your, what you identify as, right? Your what you are presenting, right, is inseparable from the centuries and centuries of culture. I mean, it's not like language. Sometimes I bring up the point that you can't really separate out words themselves, right? You can't separate the word civilization, right, as just one example, from the way that it's been used, right? It's a very inconsistent and in many ways toxic word, because the word civilization was used to describe the most in fact most barbaristic societies, right? Civilized countries were Britain, France, United States, white countries, European countries that were doing incredibly barbaristic things, enslaving entire continents of people, mass murdering them, genocide, planetary plunder, and mass killings, right? Africa, Asia, Latin America. I mean, we talk about this frequently, so you know that, right? And those were described as the civilized countries in the UN, right? It says the UN, even its founding documents say, civilized countries do not commit genocide. And then it lists as the civilized countries the UN Security Council, etc., as France, Britain, United States, Canada, Japan, right? All the countries that have like engaged in genocide. And it says these do not commit genocide. And in fact, these countries continue to commit genocide and nothing happens. Well, I mean, right? So one of my point with that is that the way that the words are used, so what even is civilized? Like what it depends on. It depends on what it's incoherent, and it's covered. It is inseparable from the history of the culture, and or like what is savage, what is barbaristic, right? As the leader of Europe likes to say, Europe is the garden and the rest is the jungle, right? But is it the garden though? It's on fire right now. It's having a lot of havoc and chaos there. It has had a lot of havoc and chaos and war historically, right? And so anyway, but long story short is, okay, getting back to gender, is that like when we talk about like, and so what counts as, where like the words that we're using, right, are like inseparable from the twisted, very messy history and culture that forms the words. Words are formed, like if you study linguistics and semiotics, the words are used. Language, the dictionary doesn't have static, arbitrary definitions that are there forever, like for like unchangingly for millions of years. Language evolves as the human, sapient, monkey relatives that are us, make sounds and then apply them to actual experiences and events in reality. It doesn't matter what ChatGPT AI programmers tell you. That's because that's an important point, that AI doesn't actually have access to the reality, the signified that the signifiers are pointing to. But it's all of the things that are happening and it being experienced in the real world that then people use the language to communicate. Oh, this means that thing that just happened, right? When you point to the sky and you go blue, without the actual experience of like seeing that big bowl of massive thing that's of particular color in your eye, it's the cognitive term would be qualia. You don't have actual human language, and the words don't have any actual meaning. You know what I'm saying? And over time, like as everyone says, oh, do you mean that color, that thing? Oh, okay. And then everyone else looks up and they says, oh, I understand that. But similarly, like when you go civilized and you point at France, oh, you mean that thing? Civilized means, this color of people. Civilized means this particular thing. Oh, civilized is when Christian. I mean, that was literally the justification. You see the paradox, right? The justification for mass culture eradication, for mass killings, right? Like to this day, and not just it's at the Canadian residential schools, but also all across the world, right? The justification for slaughtering people was because they were uncivilized, and to be civilized was means to be Christian, right? But it's well, what is barbarian? Barbarian is when you indiscriminately and in an unjustified, immoral way do mass violence and killing. But that's exactly what the Europeans have been doing, right? So, or the colonizing peoples have been doing. But then they're pointed to as being civil. And so similarly, when everybody points to, oh, civil means that, or civil means Christian, civil means Euro, civil means European, and also it means to be just, it means to be right, in the right, it means to be educated and all these things. But there's a paradox there, because you see how the peoples that are us, that you can say, okay, well, it means to be Christian, but it can't mean to be Christian and also mean to be not doing mass killing, because Christianity was a justification for mass killings. It doesn't make any sense, right? You see what I'm saying? So similarly, when you talk about gender, when we're talking about gender, the roles in which people are the roles in which people are asked to fulfill are inseparable from the centuries of culture and the actions of the millions of people that have lived in the United States, that have lived in Britain, that have lived in France, right? And the roles that they're asked to fulfill are tied to the toxic histories of those places as well, right? And so, sorry, I just gotta turn this down a little bit. Hey, what's up? What's up, Big T? Also, okay. Yeah. So, so I think that when you have, let's just go into the movie itself. So with Barbie, obviously the movie's not out yet. You can find it. You can find the trailer. I don't know if I don't like watching videos on YouTube, because bad things can happen when you watch a video on YouTube inside of your videos. So, but let's just look at But in the Barbie movie, let's just look at like one of the articles just to recap the plot real fast. Barbie trailer outdoes Pink Hued parody brilliance. It was a very funny and very entertaining, and it is definitely very comedic movie. I mean, at least the trailer was very much so. And like, if you just watch what's in the trailer, it's already like, I definitely like laughed at several points in the trailer when I watched it the first time. To paraphrase a wise woman who knows a thing or two about fantastic life in plastic, she's here and she's perfect. Nearly 4 years after it was initially announced, and a literal year plus spent fielding spoilers in the way of casting news and colorfully costumed set photos, the first full trailer for Greta Gerwig's Barbie is finally here. If anything could warrant the use of such an outdated phrase as "break the internet," it would be the world's reaction to Barbie. In November, the first footage of Margot Robbie in the titular role was all that anyone could talk about for a solid week, and for good reason. The teaser was only 75 seconds long. A brilliant reference to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey opened that teaser, cutting to Robbie's Barbie standing 100 feet tall, an earth-shattering new symbol of aspirational womanhood. So this one, this is like a little bit more. I'm trying to just get the trailer. The trailer opens with Robbie's Barbie stepping her furry sandaled feet into Barbie land. Naturally, her heels remain inches in the air even after she removes her pumps. The cartoonish blues, pinks, and yellows soar off the screen as we're treated to a classic interaction with that famously open Aqua's Barbie girl. Hi, Barbie, and everyone is obviously Barbie, and everyone is Ken in the Barbie universe, right? And so that part makes it that part is really funny. Rippling ab Ryan Gosling shouts back. Barbie, of course, responds, "Hi, Ken." Barbie greets. And Ryan Gosling has always basically just been a Ken doll for most of his career. I mean, really, from The Notebook onwards, you know what I'm saying? And so Ken, and then there's another Ken, played by Simu Liu. As we see later in the trailer, everyone in Barbie Land is engaged in hand-to-hand combat on the beach. Are they fighting over Barbie? Perhaps, but Gosling's Ken seems to be the only doll she has eyes for, even if neither of them know exactly what they're supposed to do. When Ken has to stay over her place, So, anyways, that's just the basic kind of like I'm sure you can just watch the trailer. It's 2 minutes or less, right? Um, but you know, like obviously, like just from the first glimpse of it, it looks like it's gonna be. I mean, obviously, I'm not somebody who ever had Barbies or played with Barbies. Barbies were around everywhere. I remember, they were everywhere. Every time you went to the toy store, you passed by the Barbie section, which I was going to, mostly to get video games and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But there was always Barbies there. And the wow, this is amazingly bright. That is. I just want to hurt everyone's eyes for a second. Let me just. Oh my God! See, that's your gender right there. There you go. There's the gender for you. Okay, this gender is called my retinas are screaming gender. That's what that is. Um, this is called high vis everything. This is what you can do construction work legally in this. You know what I'm saying? That's what that's for. Where do they get those textiles? I don't know, but it does look like and there's also there's also a lot of different Barbies. So you have like, and there's multiple Kens and there's multiple Barbies, and then there's what's his face what's Mumblecore dude? What's his name? Michael Cera is Ken's friend Alan, right? But then there's lots of Barbies in this, and so you have I think this is supposed to be President Barbie. I almost thought that was Megan Thee Stallion for a second there. This almost looks like it might have been it looks like a music video for Megan. But anyways, or something out of She-Hulk. But anyways, yeah. So you have a whole variety of Barbies, and there always have been. There's more variety, of course, like in the last 20 years. Especially in terms of the ethnicity and the color of the Barbies. And so, but wow, that is amazingly bright. Holy, oh my gosh, wow, that's something. What is? What was? Yeah. So as Big Teal says, I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. Exactly. Somebody pointed out like Ryan Gosling looks really old in some photos, and the thing is, well, number one is Ryan Gosling is not young. He's like well over 30. I forget what his exact age is, but he is he is like, I think is he over 40? I'm pretty sure he is. And also like I think part of the thing is like Ken himself is old, right? Because the original Ken has been around for a long time. I think that's like part of the thing. Because Simu Liu is like significantly younger than Ryan Gosling, and I think that's kind of that seems to be part of the plot, the chemistry that happens, and the explosive chemistry that happens, where Ken is kind of upset that maybe the new Ken is outshining him or something, and so there's this kind of because they all want Barbie, obviously, but or they're all and they're all, but they'll simultaneously say they want Barbie, but they're like, okay, no, well now you have Barbie, and they're like, hey Barbie, maybe I could come over to your house later. That scene was very funny, and Ken is like, can I come over to your house? Maybe we should hang out later, and Barbie's like, and do what? And Ken says, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure what we're gonna do, because it's as I think Holly and some other people have pointed out, like the Barbie movie is kind of like the Lego movie in some aspects, where the Barbie movie is like from the perspective of a kid, like a little kid playing with the toys, right? Like the Lego movie is not, it's like and later on you actually see the kid, right? And I think Will Ferrell is also in Barbie. Speaking of movies based on toy franchises, right? So Will Ferrell's character, I think it was Lord Business, right? And he later on you see that Will Ferrell is actually also playing the father of the little boy, right? Playing with the Lego toys. And so in Barbie, it's like when the kids like I'm a cowboy, bullet gun, bam, it's kind of like the kid doesn't know really what's happening. Um, like the way that things are constructed and reconstructed, like the whole plot of the story is like kind of, and like the bad guy is Lord Business, which is also his dad, because business is his dad is not spending time with him and being too obsessed with business. So it's like the things that are happening in the Lego movie are like kind of like the animated movie version of what's inside of a kid's head when he's playing with Legos. And I can't speak as somebody who has played with Legos, and I literally had a job like playing Legos with children. As a STEM teacher, we were Lego robotics mostly, but we also were just like working with Legos. And so and that is kind of it's very much like that. And so the Barbie movie is also kind of like the Barbie movie is also kind of like from the perspective of a little kid, especially probably it's a little girl most probably, but not necessarily, playing with her Barbie dolls, and kind of like, okay, now the Ken and Barbie are inside of Barbie's house, and it is Barbie's house. It's important to remember. Some people are like, oh, I saw somebody quote tweeted this, and they were like, it's like civilization is civilization. It's like everything is falling apart, and it's like, it's not necessarily. Not my point is necessarily that Barbie's movie is Barbie's movie isn't pushing negative gender roles onto people. That's kind of I mean, I don't know what the Barbie movie is because I haven't seen it, right? But I mean, that doesn't seem to be the position that the movie is, the stance that the movie is taking. It's kind of the opposite in a lot of senses, because anyway, what was I saying? I'll come back to that one. But the Barbies, so like a little kid doesn't understand what is sex at the age 7 years old, 8-year old. The kid doesn't really understand like the complexities of relationships and boundaries, consent, dealing with changing life differences, dealing with the need to make quantities of money and not have scrub bums, not want the problem of not wanting scrubs, who can't get no love from me, and on the passenger side of their best friend's ride, and then trying to holler at me. You ever had that problem? TLC has had that problem. I know Big T knows who that is. And so you have to like deal with, cute guy, no job, no money, no nothing, no, what am I, why do I want to get with that? And so Ken doesn't have a job. It's like unclear what he actually does, but it's so anyway, but that's another aside. We're going to get to that one too. We're going to get to that one with, but my point is that like, when you're just like playing with your adult shaped characters as an 8-year-old, imagining what your future life world, what your future roles might be like, it's I mean, Barbie in particular, it's like, it's a place where like your role in society is first kind of imagined, and so that's why like I'm not here to sell Barbie dolls. I'm not getting $10,000 for product placement in Silver Spook videos from who makes Barbie, whatever corporation makes Barbie. I'm not getting free samples of the Barbie Megan and Hawaiian Barbie from Mattel to say these things. I'm just saying what pops into my head. I mean, I definitely don't have the million subscribers for that. So, Big Teal says cuteness is not enough. Exactly. So, but like, and so Barbie over time, right? They later had other types of Barbies. Like for example, there was President, because in the beginning it was just and actually Holly did a stream within the last couple months or so, pertaining to the history of Barbie and all of the things surrounding Barbie. And one of the things that came up in that was that Barbie actually originated as a sex related doll from Germany in the mid 20th century, and the United States adopted it and turned that doll into a children's toy. So the body of Barbie is actually based on a sex doll from Germany. So that's anyway, that's just interesting Western history for you. But the Barbie character initially was just a doll so that little girls can prepare to be adult girls and imagine the house that they will be making. But then later on, like, people were like, we have other Barbies, like president, like this one is Barbie president, Barbie lawyer, Barbie let's just get like Barbie professions. Okay, so you have Barbie astronaut, Barbie is that flight attendant or pilot? I think pilot Barbie soccer player, Barbie newscaster, and then there were non-white Barbies. In the beginning, it was just a white Barbie, but then Barbie firefighter. So and actually, it's kind of it's appropriate thing to bring up and then bring the gender back into it, right? So the role of in the gender role, right? And as I said, like, you can't separate. I don't think you can separate gender and gender roles, right? Because if the gender is the performance part of as was it Brian that said culture is everything that we do that we don't have to do. Like, we have to eat food, like you need to have carbohydrate, some amount, fat, protein to sustain yourself, right? You have to breathe, you have to go to the bathroom, like you have to release the waste, fecal and urine material, or you won't survive, right? You have to do that. Like, do you have to do that with a bidet, or can you use toilet paper? Or maybe you do that and you don't ever wipe. That's Western culture, right? And you have very unclean white guys that don't wash their ass and will never have sex again, and that's sad for them. So you have to eat, right? But you don't have to eat. You don't have to eat cheeseburgers. You could eat, chow mein. You could eat, flan, or you could eat, for Hawaiians, we ate, a lot of lau, which is spinach leaves wrapped around pork. You don't have to eat it in that way. You can make it a different way, but you have to eat something, right? So culture and food is part of that. You have to, is what people choose to do that they don't have to do. I mean, that's a lot of styling and what culture in the social sense certainly is things that we do that we don't necessarily have to do, right? You don't need to wear clothes most of the time. I mean, most animals don't wear clothes. I mean, virtually all of them, except when Homo sapiens puts textiles onto dogs and cats, and it's kind of weird sometimes. And the dog's thinking in the dog's languageless head, verbal languageless head, what the hell is my human doing? I am literally baking alive in 90-degree Californian weather, wearing this, llama wool coat. Because why are you buying real animal wool when we have very good, cheaper, and less cruel synthetic products? But anyway, the role part. I mean, my point with the culture, food is a culture, clothing is culture. Like, I have a whole video about that with Pretty in Pink video about the role that clothing plays in the role that fashion and clothing plays in the maintaining the societal culture, whether that is a capitalistic, very stratified, very unequal culture to differentiate the undesirables from the desirables and the rich from the poor, or if that's to have a culture that is not so unequal but does differentiate between different peoples and languages and traditions, right? Like some other places that are not the United States and the West, right? So that was and I'm just gonna bring this video up for a second, just to when I'm talking about this, because part of the roles, and the gender role is not only the clothes that you're wearing, right? That's part of it, right? I mean, when we talk, there's a lot of of course, when it comes to the discourse about gender affirming care, when it comes to the discourse about drag performances, people performing in um, genders other than their birth. I mean, the Florida Pride Month was just canceled, right? Um, and what is Florida Pride Month? What people simply what is Pride, which is people publicly displaying their chosen gender performance. That's all it really, that's really what, it's not all it is, but that's a big part of what it is, right? And as opposed to being in the closet out of public view with it, which is where I'm going to say Western culture wants everyone to go, because, certainly the dominant mainstream Western culture, which is conservative, which is, it's toxic, period. Because the Democrats, as I pointed out, also went along with J.K. Rowling and the anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ pushes. They're enabling all of this to happen. They just want to seem like the Republicans are worse. That's really the only difference. That's the only difference between the U.S. and most Western parties, is which one is taking the heat for it, for being toxic, anti-LGBTQ, for being patriarchal, for being white supremacist ultimately as well, right? And for being Western exceptionalist, and for being capitalist and imperialist. The right parties take the front for it, but the whole society is governed by all those systems. And so Florida, Florida's the Florida Pride was banned, canceled. Florida Pride Parade was canceled due to state's extreme anti-drag bill. The thing, and important to remember, the anti-drag bill has not even passed yet. It's not even the bill has not even been signed into law. It's just moving through. Hawaii also has 5 anti-LGBTQ plus bills as well, right? It shouldn't just be it's not just anti-drag. These bills, they're actually anti-everyone. They're certainly anti-women, because a lot of people who are cis women are being investigated. Children, these supposedly protect the children bills, they're actually very anti-child, because children are having their privacy, their physical bodies invaded by the most horrible, right-wing Steven Crowder-like creeps that are doing the investigating, right? And we know statistically, the vast majority of all pedophilia and child sex abuse cases that are actually proven and going through court and being actually found to be real child abuse cases are pastors, they're Christians, they're rabbis sometimes, they're politicians. They're mostly white men, not exclusively, but they're mostly white guys in power, cis, straight, conservative guys that are doing all the child abuse. And so these bills actually enable those guys and people that work for them to do more investigation into children's bodies. So it's not just about LGBTQ plus. Do you have children? Do you know children? Do you care about children at all? I know there's a lot of left discourse that people apparently don't care about children in the Western left sometimes. On Twitter, well, screw children. I don't care about children. You should just never have children, because children bother me. But let's, ridiculous people aside, there's if you care about children and anyone, because it impacts women, it also impacts men, because how do we know you were a man and not, everyone, or what if your wife isn't? We have to investigate. It's this justification for an already fascistic, incredibly destructive U.S. capitalist, actually authoritarian government to get more into your business, into your closet, into your bedroom, right? It's kind of go back in the closet and then we're going to search your closet. is what these kind of bills, and all 50 states have these. They're all moving. Every state has them. The Democrats aren't doing anything to stop it either. It's very important. They don't care. Democrats are too busy trying to figure out how they're going to win the next elections. They don't care about this stuff. They want to be seen as though they care, but they don't really care. If they did, they would have done something when they had multiple branches of the U.S. government in their pocket, but the Democrats don't care. And that's what I mean when I say Western culture is just toxic. And certainly in the gender sense, the role is to be that, the role is to be The role of the man is to be an abusive parent, an abusive husband, right? Like Steven Crowder, like, you do what I tell you. You do it. You're being a bad woman. You have to do what I tell you when I say. Yeah, you're pregnant. Yeah, you could give our children birth defects, but you do what I say because I'm just a man, and I get to sit here and smoke and yell at you, and then be useless on a podcast, making money from other shitty white guys who haven't ever done anything useful and are deadbeat, nothing people, except they're good at running their mouth and berating and being abusive to other people. So Steven Crowder is Western manhood, I would argue. And imperialism is just Steven Crowder on an international scale. You, Africa, you're going to give me what I want. You're not Africa, you're not doing your wifely duties, giving us all of your free labor, slaves, and also your free resources. Asia, you're not doing your wifely duties by giving us all your stuff. Hawaii, you are supposed to be the place where we put our leaking gas stations so we can imperialize Asia. Do your wifely duties, Hawaii. Do your wifely duties. That's just the male gender from the European and imperialist world is just the way of that. This is the way of the West. You be the biggest, scariest, but you're actually not the biggest. If everybody got together, they could, overthrow any of these clowns. But you just seem bigger and more powerful and more smarter, right? America's lost every war it's ever got into post World War II. You have to seem bigger and threaten everyone to get them to give you all your stuff while you do nothing. That's male. That is the male gender role of mainstream Western culture, right? So Steven Crowder is just and everybody knows this. That's why all the guys are coming out. Everybody was coming out and saying, "Oh, Steven Crowder." Now we're since we hit Steven Crowder, let's just I'm not gonna watch that whole video because it's disgusting. But you can go watch it of what Steven Crowder Steven Crowder takes a video, shows conservative Christian Steven Crowder berating it's not allegedly, he's on video doing it. This is like saying that George Floyd allegedly died under Derek Chauvin, right? Steven Crowder yelling at his wife for failing to do her wifely duties and threatening her to effing watch it. And when she accuses him of abuse, is the latest detail in a messy intra-conservative media battle that is increasingly personal in recent weeks. Crowder announcing that he and his wife Hillary were in the midst of a divorce. Anyways, sorry, I'm trying to find. Okay, I'm just grabbing some random article. There's lots out there about it. The specific details are not super important to me right now. But here's a picture of him. Yeah. How do you respect men? You have to respect men. Put on the gloves. And he's basically he actually said, I love you. She's like, I love you and I committed to you. And he's like, well, I don't love you. I don't see why I should love you. I've never actually loved you. I'm still kind of waiting to see if you're committed enough to do dangerous things while I sit here and just don't do anything and just keeps on, gaslighting. And so, but a lot of men, from not all of them conservative. Some of them were liberal. They're just oh, that's what Steven Crowder is doing when he's yelling at his pregnant wife and threatening her, and then making it seem like everything is her fault. And everything is everything is it's just her duty and that she's not fulfilling to literally follow his orders. That's just normal marriage. That was the kind of commentary. And a lot of other people were pointing out, if you're married or you're in a relationship with a man who's doing what Steven Crowder's doing, and your man is saying that's normal, you need to run away from that relationship as fast as possible. You need to get out of that, because and the thing is that this is normal marriage. I would say this is what is expected in marriage. Again, let's come back to Christianity. Christianity is fundamentally was described as, and still is really, even if you're atheist, you don't even realize the level of Christianity you have in you. That's why you're so Overzealous and fanatical about spreading your own religion a lot of the time that you don't even realize, which is often sometimes it comes out as it's Dawkinsian anti-theism, to the point of justifying even wars to blow up all the Muslims. The U.S. successfully did that with the New Atheists and Sam Harris and Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens was in particular one of them. They said, yes, there should never be any religion. In fact, we should take away all the religion in the Middle East by spending $800 billion a year blowing them up. It actually works very well. It works marvelously, as Graham Fuller, super CIA spy, would say. But the point is that, like, the way in which that people and interact with their partners in average Western culture, right, is toxic. Remember that was this whole article. Why are 65% of men, 65% of straight men, 6 out of 10 young men are single. There's all these disturbing. It's so sad. The 2/3 of young guys are not having sex. They're not in relationships. What do? Oh no, we have to feel sorry for these men not having sex. Oh, women, you just have to have sex with these poor men. But the reason why nobody's having sex is not because, and I've made this point before, I know, is not because the women are suddenly being mean to the men. It's not because the people who are straight cis guys suddenly forgot how to have sex. It's not or forgot how to be in relationships. Or it's not because they simply don't want them. I mean, because a lot of them do want some kind of intimate relationship, romantic, sexual relationship, right? I mean, some of them are ace, but not all of them. The reason why, but it's because the normal abusive, toxic relationship, like I said, unjust hierarchical civilization or barbaristic societies, right? Capitalistic, feudal, to a large extent, certainly Euro-feudalistic, patriarchal, racist, imperialist, colonialist, right? These kind of fascistic, these kind of societies begin in the family unit. The family unit is the microcosm. It is the training ground. The family unit is the military training base for the future imperial. You practice abusing your children in Western family culture, right? That's why all these conservative guys are always getting caught in child abusing, because that's how they practice to be grown-up Western people. All these Catholic liberal priests, right? All these mayors, all these rich guys. The really rich guys, they're just better because they can buy off everyone else to stop them from ever being caught. The liberals just have more money and they're a little bit smarter about all their abuse that they do. But you practice being an abuser as a capitalist boss, as a embezzling pastor, as a labor exploiting CEO, as a entire country exploiting imperialist neocon or head of state or neoliberal, or or as a murdering genocidal soldier for the U.S. empire or Western empire. You practice being an abuser at the higher levels by starting small, by abusing your children and abusing your wife. That's how the Greeks started. Women were considered slaves and children were property, and Afro-Asiatics were also slaves. So it's basically the same. It's there's never been anything, and that's my point that I always come back to this, which is that that's always been the way for centuries. There's never been anything. There's never been any revolutionary change, right? There's not. It's if you a handful of people. There's like women who pulled out of Greece. That's where Wonder Woman is about. It's about there were women who left, like Lesbos, and there's other places where women pulled out of the society of a patriarchal, abusive Steven Crowder run Greece. And they started their own thing. It was called the era where women would care for women, because we can't trust any of these men who are beating our children. Cronus and these stories of the Greek gods where they eat their own children, they fight, they kill each other, the Oedipus killing his father, marrying his mother. This is normal Greek patriarchal society. And the women were like, we can't abide by this abusive Steven Crowder behavior. Normal Western behavior. Which is you abuse people under you, you abuse your partner, you gaslight them, you don't do anything but talk to yourself, right? See, Aristotle had podcasts, right? Aristotle had sitting around in the old boys group talking philosophy, right? And I've been through that on one of my previous streams. Modern Greco-Romans sit around and talk to other men in podcasts or listen to them, right? Or they hang out in the smoking jacket in the 500 frat boys group. They had literally the in the 50s, in the Stepford time, you had the guys come together and they smoke cigars with their jackets, and the women, right, would all be doing their laundry, taking care of the kids. Walden's Pond. I mean, the transcendentalist had mommy over there, right, doing all of his chores for him while he's jacked off in the woods, and talked to other of the other big brain philosophizers. And so, and when they're not doing that, then they're sending other poorer men off to go kill for them in one of their wars, or work for them in one of their capitalist businesses, which is not the way that business was run in Hawaii, indigenous people's lands, and a lot of African and Asian places. It wasn't run in that way. And so when Stephen, this is why when we come back to Stephen, why are men single? The reason why men are single is because the women and everyone else, especially the women, right, and that includes trans women, right, don't want to put up with abusive, boundary crossing, toxic relationships, unequal relationships anymore. They never should have for the last 2,000 years. It's just now, and they're not just going. Like I said, there could be two women that would leave Western society and go out into the middle, as in the pioneer days, right, and live out in the country, far away from that, and grow old and die somewhere in a homestead. Obviously under settler colonialism, which is not good. But it's like the one place that you could escape that is being far away from the rest of society, which was toxic, patriarchal, masculine, abusive, capitalistic, which is all the same thing. It ultimately amounts and is synergistic with Western barbaristic society. And so the gender role, and so those violation of the gender role is why all the straight guys are not having sex anymore or having wives. And like the answer is not like we should give them straight, as I made this point before with the She-Hulk's videos, and such. And also the Don't Worry Darling, is that the movie Don't Worry Darling and then the She-Hulk series. Barbie has very She-Hulk vibes. Is not that the men should women don't have to give men sex because they feel bad for them. Men have to like be better humans and choose other gender roles to abide by. Don't abide by Western mainstream average male gender roles, because those are not going to fly anymore. Kind of like the United States empire is falling apart and Western colonialism. This is really a millennia long process, but it's certainly 5 centuries in the making. The United States dollar is no longer going to be the world reserve currency. The U.S. military doesn't have supremacy. BRICS is blowing the anti-Western counter-hegemonic bloc. Brazil, Russia, India, China is growing at lightning speed. And so in the same way that the United States cannot, and the West and Europeans and their allies and all the G7 countries can't go to Asia, Africa, Latin America and go, give us all of your coltan and copper and we'll give you all this toxic debt, and just lecture and lecture and lecture. Like Steven Crowder lecturing African countries is like when a German politician goes to Africa and goes, or a British politician or American politician goes to Africa and goes, Africa, do your wifely duties and do free labor and give me free stuff while I don't do shit in Europe, but print and lounge about and threaten you with war, right? That you can't even fight anymore because you spent it all on Ukraine and you got nothing left. And also, all of your what economic supremacy that was had is all gone. China is the world's largest economy. It's doing business with everyone. Everyone's doing business out of the U.S. dollar. I don't know. I can't even name all of them, but there's so many, right? And what that's doing is it's stopping the unjust, unfair power dynamic, like the power dynamic of a straight cis Western household, like the power dynamic of a man and his wife and children. That is the power dynamic of the West and and everyone else, and the global South and the East. That is the power dynamic of the colonizer to the colonized. That is the power dynamic of the capitalist to all the workers inside of their abused, exploited workers in a doesn't matter, a Walmart, a Starbucks. Who's unionizing today? Most of the United States. That's actually another that's as I said, right? If the family life is the microcosm, the toxic microcosm that expands to your work life in your workplace, to your abusive Christian so-called moral congregation that's full of Clarence Thomas, another Christian, deeply corrupted, like the entire Supreme Court system. So I'm glad the Supreme Court, multiple justices now have been caught with multi-million-dollar scandals and scams. Right? They're literally just up for sale. The United States court. That's the way Europe has always, this course has always run. I did a stream about about 1800s courts. You literally could buy a judge position. That's how you did it. Whoever had the most money bought a judge position. And that's what they did to Clarence Thomas. You can buy far-right, anti-abortion, whatever you want legislation, far-right justice, Supreme Court justice decisions by throwing in enough mansions at them. And that's one of the that's just one of them. There's every single one of them is corrupt. Every Supreme Court judge oversees all the war crimes that the U.S. is committing. That's the worst one. It's not even really inside. That's the worst. Supreme Court rubber stamps all the Guantanamo, all the Iraq, all of that is all Supreme Court stamped. It's like, that's totally fine and legitimate. Yes, torture and enhanced interrogation technique and waterboard everyone. They're in secret. Nobody knows. There's 7,000 secret Supreme Court dockets. There's so many. The Supreme Court commits so many international human rights violations and war crimes. The Supreme Court, that they don't even have time to read all the crimes they're doing. They just, you want to drone strike some innocent civilian American citizen? That's all they do all fucking day. That's the Supreme Court. That's not even the local. That's the highest court. But that's an abusive relationship, right? You have this unjust appointed for life position, and you get to rule over everyone else and make a lot of money doing it as a so-called justice, right? This is why people are saying, we're going to sue America into submission. Disney is going to sue the fascism out of Florida. But DeSantis versus Disney, it's funny because Disney is like a bigger fascist when you look at what it's done internationally by backing the U.S. empire as the Hollywood propaganda arm for Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, everything. Disney is complicit with. DeSantis is a clown compared to Disney. But also DeSantis is a horrible, disgusting creature, obviously. DeSantis is like Bolsonaro, but the United States, the real fascists are like Biden and the billionaires that pay and install the Bolsonaros and the DeSantises and all the dictators around the world. The dictators are the incompetent imperialists, as Obama's cabinet member Ben Rhodes correctly stated. Obama was a better fascist than any Republican ever could be because he got more fascism actually done. Even Obama, I think, was actually more competent than Biden. As that goes, Biden can barely read the cheat sheet for the puff non-questions that the press are asking him. He can barely read the sentences off of his teleprompters. But anyways, that's my attack on. But my point is that the way that the cultures and the places like the United States treat everyone at every level of at every level of the fractal self-similar level of society, at the individual level, at the workplace level, at the country level, in the court, legislative, judicial, and executive dimensions, religious dimensions, and then on the international level, right? At every level, it is toxic gender roles. One role is the male role is to be the taker and the abuser and the exploiter, and then the women role is to be the exploited, the serf. Every American man's first serf is his wife. Serf / employee. and slash, not, well, I shouldn't say slave because that's more the Afro-Asiatics are the slaves. In Greece, it was literally like the Persians and then the Africans to the south. And then in the United States, it was the Chinese, Asians, the Afro-Asiatics, were the Africans slaves brought over, working with Harriet Tubman to try to do something about it. And then the Asiatics were the literal Asians, the Chinese brought over to build all the railroads, and also in Hawaii. It's actually the same groups of people. So different. Mostly they came through the Mediterranean to get and through land pathways to get to Greece, but they came over the oceans to get to America. But the point is that, like, that those roles, those are that history is part of the toxic gender roles. I would argue you cannot separate the male gender role. I'm not saying men are bad because, you have short hair, you have a penis that makes you bad. That's not what I'm saying. The gender is if the gender, like, let's try to get. Dictionary is not, as I said, dictionary is not the be all end all of what is the meaning of words, because words evolve over time and are, males, if let's just look at this one, okay? So if you go to dictionary.com, or if you go to Google, which is the ultimate arbiter of truth, right? Or let's ask ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT, what is gender? It's going to give you something like this: the male sex or female sex, when considered with the reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones, or one of a range of other identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female. So, but and so, I mean, but like even the dictionary.com, which is Western, certainly, and thereby a lot of it is kind of deeply imbued with wrong stuff. But certainly, like, when we're talking about gender, we're talking about the performance of, coming back to that Brian Eno adage, right? Culture is everything you do that you don't have to do. Let me just double check to make sure I'm getting that correct. Culture is everything we do that we don't have to do. And, and importantly, like, this quote came about, culture consists of gratuitous stylistic extras that we do add to things that we do have to do. You have to eat, like I said, right? You have to eat, but you don't have to decorate elaborately prepared curries with silver leaf. You have to move around, but you don't have to dance, right? You don't have to dance in this way. You don't have to, like, some people, you have to communicate to a certain extent. But some people communicate, like, when they say yes, like, physically they nod, right? But we recently watched, our Revolution, Rebellion, what was it? The RRR, the Indian, like, left movie from India. RRR, when they say yes, they wobble their head, right? So that's a cultural particularity, which is also related to language as well. That's a nonverbal, literal body language way of communicating. Culture is biological drive for humans. It's not something that we just add on at the end after we've dealt with all the problems, but something we keep doing all the time. Anyway, but similarly, right? So similarly, in the same that you have to eat, but you don't have to eat chow mein, or you can even two chicken dishes, right? Or like beef, right? You could eat it as an American hamburger, or you could eat beef broccoli in an Asian style, or you could eat, kung pao, or Mongolian style beef, or you could eat beef cooked in another, Mexican in a taco, right? You have to eat the meat, but you don't have to eat it that way. The culture is the things that you do that you don't have to do. So similarly, gender, a lot of when we're talking about, gender, I don't know exactly who's watching this video, but wherever you are, I'm trying to guess at where everybody is. But when you're talking about gender roles, the actual the role, the gender itself is a performance. And I think I brought this up in the video about the Pretty in Pink, right? Which is that historically, what was, and this, like, I don't know, this point can never be overemphasized, I feel. What was historically seen as the male gender, right, was in fact pink at one point. Let me see if I have that picture in here somewhere. Right, at one point in history, there was a time in which men, right, wore pink, and men wore heels. Men wore the stockings, things seen as women's clothes, right? And they in fact invented it. Makeup was first worn by European men, right? Let's see, was it Henry VIII, right? It's our good old friend, you know. You know, they wore stockings, they wore heels. Heels were invented for men. Makeup was invented for men. All the elaborate wigs, the things, the long hair, you know, the color schemes that are now seen as women, a lot of those were all created for men. Over time, the culture, right, what was considered the performance of male gender, European heels, you know, not heels, right? Like, you know, like what over time, right? What was seen as male gendered clothing evolved and changed a lot of times at the arbitrary whims of the rulers of European, although not exclusively, but, you know, certainly in Europe, which was very hierarchical, unjust, barbaristic, abusive, toxic, gaslighting, Stephen Crowder / Greek, like, as I already said, right? It was patriarchal. When a guy at the top changed his mind, or a ruler at the top changed their mind, that would impact the entire culture. Like, for example, Castilian Spanish, right? Castilian, like, people started lisping because they were afraid they might get their head chopped off, because the king at this one point in Spain's history spoke with a lisp, right? And so also that's why the game Neofeud is also has to do with this as well, which is that the feudalism was not just a system of, you know, vassaldom and serfdom. It was a reflection, the short lifespans and the differentials between the lower class and the upper class under European feudalism certainly is a reflection of that also unjust, barbaristic society that was in Europe. That's, you know, that then kind of spread it. Colonialism is really Europeanness spreading to the rest of the world. Well, not necessarily European. Not that the people are bad, but the systems and the cultures and the ways and the society had become deeply, deeply embroiled in terrible life ways and problems that repeated themselves again and again. And so the culture, you know, and so the roles that people, the culture, which is the things that you do that you don't have to do. And my computer is freezing up right now, unfortunately. Stop freezing up, please. I must have clicked on too much. I must have said too many base things in a row. But computer's like, you know, you have too many shoes. You must, you know, donate some of them to the thrift store before you can continue. So if the appearance of, like, wearing this shoe or wearing that color, right? Wearing, like, florid styles of dress, having the long hair. Look at this is a literal white male, most powerful ruler in a European country, right? But then at another point, men have to have short hair. Men have to have short hair, right? Stephen Crowder has short hair, right? Jordan Peterson has short. Men just have short hair because men have short hair because men have short hair. That is your gender, which is your sex, and that is what you have to look like. If you're a man without short hair, that's a violation of God. That's a violation of reality. Like, you have to look that way because that's the way that men have to look. That's not the way men have to look. Right? Like, that's the point. That's what you're seeing right in front of your face. That is all performance. In the same way that when a drag queen or person in heels, when somebody who is a man puts on heels and puts on a dress and puts on long hair, right? Like in a drag performance, right? Which the United States is banning. All 50 states, let's be real, all 50 states are trying to ban all LGBTQ+, all trans, all people performing gender outside of their assigned Western society identified gender. When a drag performer puts on their clothes, they're not doing anything different than what a European king was doing when they put on a dress, long hair, and high heels and stockings. It's all a performance. So, right? Because again, culture is everything you do that you don't have to do. Right? The thing that the drag performer, right, and people or trans people or people that are not performing the gender that they are asked by the rest of their family, their coworkers, their community, their town, right, their whatever other groups they're affiliated with, right, the people, the job that they work at, right, the people that are not following the gender roles that they are being assigned to do, right? Those people are. It's not that they are violating laws of the universe. They're not violating laws of nature. They're not like violating, your Christian, abusive husband in heaven, also known as the Christian God, right? You're not actually causing chaos and havoc inside of your body. And that's, like, obviously you could do that if you take too much of certain substances physically, like in a real sense you could, in a inappropriate way. But I'm talking about like, meth or something like, but I mean, like when you're just changing what physically is on your person, like little bits, like braided strands of cotton and polyester, that's all that is, right? But the thing that somebody who is transgressing against the gender roles that are all performances, when you aren't performing what you're asked to perform in your free time. Now, obviously, like if you show up like that and you working as somebody, I don't know, you're working, in a grocery store, or I don't know, somewhere else where it's like, okay, is that we need to be wearing that right now because we're just trying to get through, this process, or if you're like a firefighter, that's not appropriate because, well, I mean, it's not conducive to actually saving people's lives, right? Actually, I'll come back to that. The functionality of what you're wearing, that's actually important. I'll come back to that because some aspects of what you are wearing are at some aspects of what you choose to decorate yourself with, etc., are necessary for functionality, right? Which sometimes leads to fashion, like military, which, the trench coat became fashionable after millions of soldiers came back from world wars and they had all these coats around, and then the trench coat, took off, and, a lot of fashion comes from the functionality when the trench coat was there because you're going to be in wet, cold, terrible, muddy conditions, and the trench coat is conducive to you surviving that and effectively fighting, which is your job. I'm not saying that people should fight wars. It'd be much more effective to have peace, but within the constraints of war, the fashion of the gender role of the, and it is a role, like a role in a play, right? Like all the world is a stage, right? And so the trench coat is another piece of sartorial history, right? That is came into fashion because of a design of clothing that was built for functionality in trenches, in trench warfare, and then it became fashionable later. And so there is a, not exactly what style of trench coat, what color of trench coat, that stuff is more culture. But I was using the firefighting as an example, right? When you are fighting fires, you want to be wearing extremely flame resistant, if not fireproof, garb. Like when firefighter Barbie is wearing firefighter Barbie's clothing, that is functional. It's stuff that firefighter Barbie has to do in that sense. So that you have to wear flame resistant clothing, right? You're gonna have to wear that hard hat, because you could have flaming 200-pound beams fall on your head, right? Like when you go to a construction site, you have to wear construction gear, high visibility gear, right? Like when Ken has his high visibility skates, right? That's culture. When Barbie and Ken have their like eye searing, radioactive green and blistering my retinas pink and like blue screen of death blue outfit on, like that's not functional. That's just like that's what we're choosing to wear. But when you're going to a job as a construction worker and you have to wear your high visibility shirt and your hard hat, that is functional. Now when when the village people make the YMCA video and they're dressed as construction workers and sailors, that's culture, because they when you're doing a musical performance on a stage in 1980, you don't have to wear a hard hat. But so anyway, do you see where I'm saying, like, so what is sometimes what was necessary in a particular profession and a role, clothing wise, sometimes later on impacts the culture part of clothing that's outside of like the mandatory professions. But even within the professions, there's still culture. Like even within the military, the way that the kind of clothes the generals wear and then the lower ranks wear, that is what the way the military is set up even is culture, certainly. And there's maintenance of imperial structures happens also through culture. Like if you look at the Empire Strike, speaking of the Star Wars universe, like if you look at what Moff Gideon wears versus people under him wear versus the stormtroopers wear, it's also, I mean, it's functional, but it's also cultural in the sense that it serves to maintain an imperial culture. So this stuff it's complicated because a lot of this is inseparable from human psychology and human civilization and human politics. Clothing is inseparable from politics as well. That's actually a point of Michael Saba has a video on Kill la Kill and how fascism and fashion are inseparable and impact what we wear and what we project outwards, which is part of your gender, is part of what decides whether there is fascism or communism, socialism, capitalism, in how that constantly is your physical appearances and expectations of culture are constantly interacting with the political, economic, and social realities in a way that is, as I said, is not separable from the cultures that they are emerged from, right? So that's what it is. So when somebody is performing in drag, right? And when somebody is certainly walking, it depends on the context. Certainly when somebody goes to a job and they are not dressed as the gender that they are assigned as, right? As like a trans person going to a job in an office, right? Or, like Ron DeSantis' office, who came to the office in slacks, long pants, a men's office shirt, tie, whatever, short parted hair, and then later came out and was like, I'm a trans person, and that's the same person is now performing, is now wearing a dress, a office appropriate dress, and office appropriate, glasses, long hair, maybe it's in a bun or something that would be appropriate in an office, right? Wearing high heels, right? So that person that is in Ron DeSantis' office or any office is now they're simply performing that gender that they're performing. And there's nothing, like, obviously if that person was wearing, like, I don't know, a suit of really loud armor into an office, like, well, if you're making all that noise when we're all trying to perform our duties in this office, like I'm trying to enter numbers into this database, I need to talk to my clients in this office, we need to handle the business, and I can't handle it. If you're wearing a suit of armor, that's like, for some reason, because you're some weird LARP happy Society for Creative Anachronism fanatic. That is, well, that's not really acceptable because functionally we can't do what we need to do, right? Now, like if you're wearing, you know, that business appropriate, male, masculine, male accepted clothing or women accepted clothing, that is well, obviously if you didn't have a toxic Western culture, a unjust, human rights violating American culture and European culture to a large extent, that is anti-trans, it's anti-LGBTQ plus, then people would accept, which, and it's very important to point out, in China there's gender affirming care for children, there's no abortion bans, there's not even like everyone's not 100% agreement, but everyone is accepts that we need more LGBTQ plus rights. Same thing for places like Cuba, which just said basically just abolished the kind of toxic nuclear family. And Vietnam just had more trans and LGBTQ plus rights pushed into law, right? So the rest of the world is actually in the same way the rest of the world is moving away from a capitalist imperialist system coming out from colonization. They're also moving further and further into more support for for LGBTQ plus people, for women, etc. And the U.S. and the West is going the opposite direction, right? And the U.S. is really pulling Europe. That the U.S. is a descendant as a European settler colony of Europe, and Europe is pulling Europe down. The U.S. is into its downward spiral. As it just, I wouldn't really say it's getting worse. It's just revealing more and more of who it really is, and the real Americans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, because they are the real people that adhere to these the values that the founding fathers had, which is racism, capitalism, patriarchy, slavery. I mean, the U.S. is re-enabling child labor. Child labor was only recently outlawed, though. It was only in the it's not even mid-century. 1930s, 40s was when a lot of the child labor laws went into effect. And now they're going backwards with 11-year-olds in the jam factories, 12-year-olds, working as child slaves at Chick-fil-A's and the McDonald's, and everyone's like, all the adults that are, as Holly pointed out, all the adults that are clapping and cheering for all this child abuse, as 11 and 12-year-olds are working for huge corporations, 10, 12-hour shifts sometimes. And their parents are like, yeah, go make money for me. That's actually the perfect example of where parents, you practice being a participant and an abuser in a capitalist culture. Because capitalism is toxic economic culture. It's about, I make money, I lie to you, and I abuse you, and I extract wealth from you. Your labor value from a Marxist analysis. But you practice being a member of capitalism by abusing your children in the household. So everybody says, oh, I hate kids, I don't ever want to be around any kids, I don't want to see no kids. That whole discourse, that just reveals how actually not left you are. Because you're still moving in the world with your familial anti-children, child abusive and wife abusive mentality. It's kind of like the colonial mentality. Your colonies could be gone. Like Britain lost a lot of its colonies and is trying to hold on to as much as it can with the United States. But you can still have a colonial mentality going like, you should serve me though. You should be my subject. Or you could have a neo-feudal or a neo-colonial mentality. You should all be my serfs. The wife should do wifely duties, right? And the other countries like China and Asian countries and African countries should give me their stuff for free and take only WTO loans. They should all work for us. Asian countries should make all my Walmart products for 2 cents an hour. Africans should give us all of their coltan and copper because we're more civilized than them or something, right? That's the colonial mentality that can stick around, even though your colonial heydays in reality are over, which they're rapidly approaching. They're like half over at this point. They're not still a lot of power in place, but it's happening so fast. People always say, "Oh, it's going to take decades for de-dollarization." Are you sure? People, it's mostly white dudes that say that shit. It's kind of like, oh, women, they'll never be in charge because I have a podcast and I'm Steven Crowder. I mean, it's like, well, for how much longer, buddy? Oh, as long as enough right wingers come out and just be like, shoot, if enough right wingers and Kid Rock and Ben Shapiro come out with all their MAGA girls and their cottage core, crypto Nazi girlfriends, come out and shoot AR-15s at the Bud Light cans. If you shoot enough Bud Light cans, you think this is gonna turn back the tide? I don't think so. So, but anyways, so my point is that coming back to the Barbie movie though, so and the gender roles, which is that what people are, so again, like the roles that you play are not separable from the culture that you're in. Also, by extension, right? By extension, the culture that you are in, to a large extent, interacts with the gender roles, but also generates and is the history of the roles that are currently exist, right? So, like I said, right. So, I mean, just to take a Western example, right? The gender role of the women wearing the pink, right, is evolved from a history where the European men, not that one. I'm trying to get them. So the women wearing stockings, right, and women wearing heels evolved from this history where men wore them, and then it shifted over time, and certainly at certain periods, there were rapid shifts. But which one is this? I'm trying to one of the Louis. I can't remember which one. He's always photographed with. Yeah. So again, the history of that culture is inseparable from the both the visible roles, but there's also the power imbalance roles, right? So the women are the weaker, subservient. That's part of the role. It's also important to remember. Yelling at your wife and demand and being in charge is part of the role. Like it's like like obviously there's healthy ways to do BDSM and stuff, but like a lot of times, people that are engaging in a simulate. That's why there's safe words, because things that you're doing might not be safe if there's not an understanding of mutual consent, mutual, right, with boundaries and mutual benefit from a power imbalance in a in a sexual role play, right? It would, it's understood, like, if one party is just being gaslit into being of subservient, that's okay. Now I order you to do this, and I order you to do this, and I order you to do this, and I order you to do that. Okay, now you lick my foot, and you massage my foot, and if you want a toxic, unsafe word free dominant role, just be a housewife for a man in the 1950s or any time really, and just be a woman for the last 2,000 years in Western culture and many other cultures as well. But certainly, we're in English. The stream is in English, so that's what we're dealing with a lot, right? And to be clear, that's not how it was in Hawaiian in historical Hawaiian culture, in indigenous culture. Like, women were actually of equal or sometimes more power within the society. And so that is a patriarchal Western colonizer gender role identity, which is for the man to have the power. That's part of the role. That's why I said it's toxic. It's not, and it's also non-consensual. Also, right, the men are expected to only have one emotion, which is anger, right? Where's Steven? Where's Steven getting angry? Right? You see if I can just get a little clip of this. I just, where Steven is over here, right? Just yelling at his wife, why aren't you committed enough? Why aren't you committed enough? And like, she's like, literally pregnant when he is only expressing anger, never expressing love, never expressing care, never expressing, the full spectrum of emotions, right? just expected to be like this toxic. If you ever do, if you do experience other emotions, it's like in a toxic, abusive way, like just forced crying to get women to do something. Like when they're the ones, you're the one that's doing the abusing, right? But you know, men like being expected to be, voicing these concerns at these times in these ways, right? Using an authoritative tone, right? There's email gender. There's the way that you text, type, and reply to posts. The way you Twitter post is gendered. In English, in the Western culture, when you use periods, when you don't use emojis, when you use question marks, right? That's part of your gender. That's a performance. You know how I know this? Because you can do that when you write emails and you use a lot of questions like, oh, should I, change the color in the ink, or do you feel like it would be appropriate? That's subservient women's gendered roles in email, and you can actually you can feel it different because when men read other men's emails, right, they often react in a certain way, and when they read a women's email, number one, if you're applying for a job and you're writing and if you sign the name at the bottom of the email with a woman's name, you literally are like twice as likely to not get the job. Also, when you get hired for the job, if they know you're a woman, then they identify as women, you're gonna get 70% of the pay. Right? That your role is also to be economically submissive. Your role is to be the female gender role, the women gender role in Western society is to be economically submissive, is to be professionally under and submit when you are interacting. Right? That's how you know it's not just about the hair. It's part of it is hair and the lipstick and the lady, but it's also like how you communicate and the power dynamic in communication. The women ask questions. The women don't give definitive answers. The women ideally don't talk. Women not talking in meetings. They say if the average man in a boardroom meeting, if women talk for more than like 5% of the time, there was a lot of women talking. If women talk for more than 20% of the time, and like Holly was the one who like pointed me in this direction. There's studies. If women talk for more than 20% of the time, women dominated the entire meeting, even though men were talking for 80% of the time. Because the women gender role in power structures, not just clothing, not just hair, it's not just in sex, it's not just in, women, it's not just your high-pitched voice, even though that's part of it, right? Right? Performing women gender is to literally never have your voice heard. It's the gender role in a political sense, right? The women's role is to be not in the non-democracy of Western business and home and all cult and religious and all culture, is to always be the undemocratic, order-taking, non-speaking, freedom of speech, right? Is again, right? The women's job is to not have the freedom of speech. That's the role is to be silent. That's why, like, in Shape of Water, the 50s really abusive Mr. Man who wants his Thunderbird in his Leave It to Beaver house in his suburb, right? You know that guy? He covers his wife's mouth and he's like, I like it better when you're silent. When he's having sex with her, he just like covers her mouth because you should just. And he wants the girl who literally is mute because like she had like an injury and she can't speak at all. And he's like, I really like you because you can't talk at all. So the gender role of women is to never talk except to say yes. That's why Steven Crowder is just every man in the West. Steven Crowder is just performing male gender. You do your wifely duties. You don't talk back. He's like, watch it. When she says, Steven, like, I love you and I'm committed to you, but you can be very abusive. He's like, watch it. Never talk. Never talk to me. If you ever talk to me, that's not your wifely. Your position is to be mute. Freedom of speech is for men. Men have white men in particular have the freedom of speech gender role. To say Nazi, capitalist, racist, incorrect ignorance on my podcast all day, right? Or Aristotle talking with his buddy Plato all day while women don't talk. That's the gender role in Western. That's Greek, 2,500-year-old Greek culture. The Romans, you forget about it, right? We just kill everyone with our centurions, and if women open their fucking mouth, You should listen to Paul from the Bible. Women, wives, obey your husbands. Period. The end. Same thing for the whole medieval feudal culture, colonial culture, hyper patriarchal American culture. Steven Crowder is just following Western gender roles for thousands of years, and his wife is not. That's why he's upset. Steven Crowder is upset because his wife is not remaining silent. That's not her right. That's her duty. That's her wifely duty. The women gender role is to never talk, and the male gender role is to always talk and to always say abusive, terrible shit. That's at an international level. That's BBC, the New York Times, and all the State Department imperialist media's job is to talk and say bullshit, right? Like we have to go stop Uyghur genocide and talk near testimony to go abuse entire countries. So when Steven Crowder is practicing for a job at the NED or at Fox News or CNN, doesn't matter, to make imperialist, to abuse entire countries. If he can abuse his wife enough and get away with it, then Steven Crowder can work at a higher level and blow up all of Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, or just, colonize the entire world. Do you see how like the gender role, the role that you play in your household, in your romantic, and your familial, and all other aspects of your life realizes itself at the highest level. And also at the highest level, everybody watches the president get away with war crimes, and then all the guys go, oh, well, I should model that behavior because he's powerful, he's celebrated, he's famous, he's rich. I should just lie and cheat and steal and kill, like Mike Pompeo said, and everyone has ever done, and just get away with it. And so at the highest level, they watch this happen. Everybody knows that the U.S. is murdering millions of people in Iraq and Afghanistan, and everyone's watching everyone get away. Oh, I can be a Supreme Court judge, even a black one, Clarence Thomas, and launder millions of dollars and get away with it. I can be a CEO of a major bank, like all of them, like J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and just like abuse the shit out of my customers and defraud the entire society and cause a global economic meltdown, and none of us go to jail. In fact, we get trillions of more free dollars. I should just be a shitty, toxic Wall Street banker or high-frequency trading algorithm programmer. I should be a CEO of a major bank by just being a toxic, abusive, gaslighting asshole. Like when Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein said, yeah, we just stole money straight out of our customers' accounts. It was really hilarious and fun. And also, I'm doing God's work. So at every level, and so young dudes look at Elon abusing his wife, joining with eugenicists, being a surrogate pathological serial liar, and also abusive capitalist shithead, and they're going, wow, that guy's a multi-hundred billionaire. Western and the West rewards Elon. Very important. Western business, political, and economic culture has rewarded Elon with his horrible, incompetent, bullshit spewing corporate life, his home life, everything has gone for him. The West, even as terrible as he is, it's really like we have to give him even more because he's already so rich. If he falters, we've already propped him up so much because the West is Elon, a guy who has like abused every single partner he's ever been with. And Grimes gone out with a trans woman, specifically because how much she's like not I'm saying that she went out with Grimes went out with Chelsea Manning just because of that, but was like, I think certainly the cis straight Elon being such a garbage boy made it a big impact. But even still, the West has to reward him because it is the West is tied at the hip to a patriarchal certain performance of a certain gender, which is also tied to its imperialist, capitalist, barbaristic, unequal, unjust systems. So anyways, so that's where Steven Crowder really comes. It's not really about Steven Crowder, I don't give a shit about this guy. It's more about what he represents, It's more about what he represents at every level, what the video represents, right? If you are committed, right? If you are committed to me, if you are performing your gender as a woman, he says that if you're performing your gender as a woman properly, you do what I say when I say it. That's the gender role, right? Is it necessary that 50% of the population, approximately, right? Is it necessary that women have to do everything that men say? No. That's culture, right? Right? Again, right? Like I said, right earlier, right? Pop quiz? What is culture? Right? Culture is everything that you do that you don't have to do. Is it necessary that no? You know how we know? You know how we know that it's not necessary that women have to be subservient to men? I mean, I don't care how many times Jordan Peterson says it's the fall of civilization and chaos, dragons reign, and the world goes to hell when women aren't in charge. It's actually Jordan Peterson is a lot like Shakespeare. And what do I mean by that? Well, Jordan Peterson says, lava pits open up and hell spills over and everyone is sad and depressed and bad things happen when women are not under men. Shakespeare had, at the end of every play, the rightful feudal ruler, the unjust feudal ruler, right, that made lives nasty, brutish, and short, and starved peasants to death and had them all killed in needless wars for him. The rightful British ruler or Italian ruler, Merchant of Venice, I forget which one it was. Is it the Duke in different places? The rightful, the planets, they call it the denouement is the term for the end of it. I remember I was in AP language classes, AP English classes, right? The rest, the planets, the universe is out of, the cosmos is out of alignment when the correct ruler is not on the seat, and then everything is restored as long as the hierarchies are restored, right? They're unjust hierarchies, but we're in the West here. We're not living in anything that's ever had truth spoken and not had its head chopped off. So when men are not in charge, that's also the plot of a recent remake of The Craft, which David Duchovny says, when men are not in charge, everything goes wrong, right? That's the red pill, right? Feminism is cancer and everything is wrong with the world. That's what they've misinterpreted a trans woman's movie, The Matrix, to be. But when everything is not, when women are not under men, the world is in chaos. Everything is bad. There's sadness, and if women would just get back in line, then everything would be right. And the reality is, if women were to have equality, actual equality, and not be under men, right? It actually would. The world actually would. It would be the opposite. The Western world would actually be in a much, not perfect, but it would be in a peaceful, more happy place, which indigenous people and lots of other it's important. Gaddafi in Libya, which the U.S. destroyed, was actually trying to restore what was in Africa before colonization, which was much better equality for all genders, not just women, also for the non-binary or third gender people that are not, they don't really have words for them in English, that were in Africa, right? And in fact, Asia and the Pacific have a long histories of a lot of different gender identities outside of the gender binary, and not every culture in Asia and the Pacific, that's a lot of people, that's the majority of the human species, in fact. Not everybody at all times always had matriarchal culture or equal gender equality, but the cultures that were most successful and the least abusive at the times that they were had strong equality for women in those cultures, including Hawaiian culture and many other Pacific cultures, or we're working to pursue more gender equality and acceptance of non-gender conforming people, right? In fact, you can almost see like the times in which it becomes more patriarchal is the times in which the society has the society is going through a dark period, right? And China is actually one of these. In fact, there's a period where there was huge explosion of women's literature and feminist topics and trying to bring more equality. It was during the Song Dynasty, so about 1,000 years ago, and and there are different periods over time. And there were other periods that were not as good. Certainly during the recent colonial era, there's some not good periods. But anyway, so that's where a lot of people say, patriarchy, colonialism, capitalism, these are fundamentally intertwined. They absolutely are. They have never not been. The lie is that we can fundamentally separate out the economic. We can separate out completely the economic realities and just talk about class. It's just a lot of Western left ideas. We just talk about class and then that will get us where we got to go. Absolutely not. Absolutely. I mean, in fact, you just talk about class, you could get straight to fascism. That's what happens usually in the West. like in Germany in the 1940s and in the United States in the 1870s. Well, it's always been in the United States, but certainly there was a mass extermination of Asian people in the United States. They call them the mass killing of the Chinese in the Chinatowns. And these Americans don't even recognize that. They're just like, well, whatever. It's Chinese. They're not human. America, one day, the West and the United States will recognize what they have done to Asians. They're not even close to getting there. As they try to make the ridiculous war on China, they're not going to win. China is recognizing Okinawa as Ryukyu, the original name of that place for centuries. I'm just waiting. One day China is going to recognize the sovereign country of Hawaii, and then America is going to be in. That'll be closer to when America is realizing the depths to which its imperial hegemony and the West's imperial power is over. But probably not right now. Even though Hawaii is an illegally occupied country under the United States. But anyway, I'm like way off on my topic. So back to the Barbie movie though. I know most of this is not really about Barbie. I'm talking about gender, and I'm talking about how it intersects with other power structures. But that's been very serious stuff. So I should probably do something more light and funny. But so Ryan Gosling's hair though. What the Barbie movie, it is, it's also directed by women, so that's important to remember. So I mean, I think that it made a difference in She-Hulk, which I did enjoy that, and it's a lot of dudes didn't enjoy She-Hulk. Obviously, a lot of Marvel fan dudes did not enjoy She-Hulk because it did not say and show what they wanted to see and to hear. How to get smashed. Speaking of toxic gender roles, so and so in She-Hulk, Daredevil does see. Right, I talked about earlier. Why are 2/3 of men, cis straight men, not having sex anymore? Well, part of it is because if you keep performing the role that you have been performing, that is no longer. It's actually directly like, right. If the U.S. led global capitalist order, and by extension, colonialist order, and all of that is white supremacist, Western exceptionalist order, and also patriarchal order, and also cis, straight, heteronormative order. If all of that is ending, which it all is, it's really all it's not unilaterally in every country simultaneously moving at the same rate, but that is the general trend. And if the world is moving towards a more win-win, cooperative, mutually, actually just, actually civilized, I would argue. So, now you're gonna see, right? It's great that Asia is bringing civilization to Europe finally. That's what I saw somebody tweeted that or tweeted that earlier today. I mean, that's really the truth. We are in a period where there is going to actually be huge planet-wide changes that have not been seen. I think Xi Jinping and Putin said, "My friend, you and I will bring changes to the world that have not been seen in a century." And I think it was Putin agreed, and it was a yes, and we must work together closely. These changes, I mean, some of these changes are arguably 5-century or multi-thousand-year changes, at a global scale, happening so fast, happening incredibly fast, for 2 centuries or for almost 2 centuries. Is the window in which Western powers, not just the United States, Britain, France, China, was the world's largest economy for millennia, thousands of years. Only for 200 years, briefly, did any European country or U.S. or Euro settler country like the U.S. surpass the United States. Britain surpassed China. Britain surpassed them mid-1800s, and they're back down. In fact, India is going to surpass, I think, soon Germany. Germany just was like insulting India recently. Some German politician or publication, and then there's a huge backlash that said India is going to surpass Germany very soon. So you better watch what you say to the BRICS, to non-Western, Eastern, and global South, global majority countries. Again, 12 countries are going to join BRICS like very soon. They're pushing their joy. Brazil, Lula just went to China, was well welcomed. You have Brazil, you have Mexico, you have Argentina, Nicaragua, dozens of African countries. I mean, all the biggest world's population, the fastest growing economies are all moving away from their former abusers, like a abused wife, like Steven Crowder's wife getting out of that relationship and going, fuck you, I'm not going to be part of this unjust relationship. All of these places are rapidly leaving, and so similarly, that's part of the in at the smaller, at the smaller snowflake, the smaller fractal level of society, at the individual level. That's the cis white guys that don't have any girlfriends anymore. It's like, well, it's not that it's not that the U.S. can't ever do business with China. Even Jake Sullivan, Neocon's Neocon, is over there, right? Literally trained by Brzezinski Group. I mean, if you don't know who that is, you can go look up, read the Grand Chessboard. It's free on the United States government. Very nice websites. Free actual education from the U.S. government. Don't read an American textbook. Read CIA.gov's Grand Chessboard theory, made by U.S. imperial hegemony maintainer Zbigniew Brzezinski. That is, if every American actually had to read the Grand Chessboard and not read their actual American history books, all 330 million, you would have a lot smarter population that would be doing the right thing now, because they know what their country was actually trying to do, which is destroy and maintain their supremacy, like Steven Crowder over his wife. So the ability to so at the individual level, right, Daredevil, I mean, the She-Hulk is like, there's no good guys to date anymore. I can't find any guys worth going out with. These are all like really crappy, abusive, shitty dudes. And then there's a group. There's like a men's rights activist event happening where Abomination is like literally giving a big talk to all of these guys who are all like egging each other on, like, yeah, man, let's all listen to Joe Rogan and Steve and Jordan Peterson, and that'll really, once we can get all those women back under our control, then we'll have sex again and we'll have romantic encounters or something, like. And it's like, that's the West though, right? It's going like, that's the people going, maybe if I start another war in Sudan with Victoria Nuland, right? Maybe if we just like threaten the 90% of the planet some more, maybe we'll get them back under our boot. That's really what Ukraine is about. It's about trying to destroy Russia and China to maintain Western imperial hegemony under the United States with NATO. The Europeans are all directly involved in this, or the Europeans that don't have democracy, which they never had, as less than vassals of the United States, are involved in. Right? The NATO is like the men's rights activist group, right? Watching the Megan Thee Stallions, watching the She-Hulk, watching all of the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and women and LGBTQ plus people coming together. The country majority, right? The global majority is the global South and the East, etc., the colonized peoples of the world under the colonizers from Europe and Japan, and then going, we're not going to deal with this anymore. And inside countries, the majority of the country is not a cis straight white man, right? 30%, the white people is 70% in like United States. Men is half, so it's 35%, and then straight white men is probably like 20%. So inside of the country, in a gender and ethnicity and racial dynamic sense, the white man going, let's come together and dominate again, is a microcosm of the West going, let's come together and dominate this planet again. But the reality is that's not going to be possible. Literally, the planet, as I said, there will not be another empire. There will not be, because the British especially, they like to talk about, oh yes, we're very smart British over here. The Chinese empire will take over the American empire, and then there'll be some other empire. There will not be any more empires. You Anglo, stuck up, snobbish pricks, and you're also ignorant of history. There will not be another empire. You know why? Because if empires are comorbid with capitalism and imperialism, this planet cannot sustain another empire. There's no 250-year window where another U.S. empires last 250 years, and yes, I'm very smart. I went to Oxbridge, and now I write for the Guardian, and I'm a very esteemed British professor of political science, and I yell at Luna Oi, a Vietnamese woman, all day long, and I'm wrong. Oh yes, I'm very smart. Read my big brain books from Europe. You know, like there will not be another empire because the planet will be dead before then. But this in the same in this in like half a sentence later, they'll say things like, "Oh, it's too bad the planet won't live. Oh, what happened to our great old environmental, animal life loving David Attenborough. What's happened to him? I don't know. The planet's dying. Oh, but there will be another empire." You don't even understand what you're saying. But this is why the U.S. I recently talked to my dad, and my dad is a culturally genocided Hawaiian man that's now a white man inside. And he's like, "I don't know, what are we gonna do? There's just no hope for the world. I guess we all have to just like read. Why don't we all sit around and read Revelations and read the liberal atheist version of Revelations that is climate doomerism articles. You know, let's just read climate doomerism articles and Revelations and sit around and watch everything burn around us like a bunch of clowns." That's the solution. That's the Western white man solution, right? That's the Western left sometimes solution, right? Rather than like actually like participate in the new future world. But it's a world that you can't dominate. So they don't, I mean, literally, as people, as men have fulfilled, Western men, sometimes not even white, sometimes black or brown and Asian too, have fulfilled the gender role of dominating everything. They don't know how to not, it's almost like, again, the male gender role is to dominate everything. So they don't, it's a violation of their gender. It's a violation of their essence in a certain, not their essence, but it's a violation of their residual self-image in a matrix sense, right? To not dominate, they don't know how, or either they're dominating or someone else is dominating them in different contexts. But that's the only way they know how to be, is someone is the empire. That's why British has these ridiculous stories like, there's just empires and there's always empires. Humanity bad. We're all just bad. Because, well, I mean, that's just your fucked up history, yes. But that's 10% of the world. That's not everyone. In fact, like, you know, and so that's why you can't get laid also, though. Because the rest of the world's like, we don't, I know you're used to doing that, but that's not how we're doing things anymore. You have to like learn the new way. So you have to learn the new way to do business in the world. You know, America and the West, you're going to start making products. You can't just give people debt, loans, war, propaganda, and shitty TED Talks and lectures from the IMF. You can't just give people, you can't print dollars and buy shit with your exorbitant privilege of the dollar. Because nobody's doing business in it anymore, and the U.S. military can't fucking enforce it. So you're going to have to make something, and you have to, I said this before, right? The West is going to have to, like TLC said, women and TLC in particular don't want no scrubs. A scrub is a guy who thinks he's fly, also known as a buster. Always thinking about what he wants and sits on his broke ass. Right? So women are not fucking you because you don't offer anything. You don't bring equality. You don't economically, romantically, in mental energy and labor, if, you know, in home care work and all this stuff. You don't bring anything of mutual benefit, and they don't want no scrub. And internationally, Africa don't want no scrub who just like lectures and, you know, always talking about what he wants, right? That's like Borrell and Biden going to Africa and lecturing them and going like, why don't you have a better democracy? And sits on their broke ass and then takes all your coltan, copper, lithium, and exploited labor, right? The rest of the world don't want no scrub, and none of the women do either. And so... So I know I'm like hammering this point home probably many times. I'm smashing this point home. What am I saying? But you know, if you look at Daredevil's character, right? Daredevil's character is he is you know, in the show, the She-Hulk, he is, you know, he's a dude, but you know, he's also trying to help other people, as is like, that's like his calling in life is mostly that. He's like, he's like, oh, if we have sex, I mean, it's not like he doesn't want to have sex, you know, it's not like he's not unattracted to She-Hulk, but it's also like, you know, he has other things going on in his life. It's not all about him. That's very important. And what he specifically wants. And, you know, he's not actually disrespectful. Was that looking respectfully? You know, it's the meme when you see a hot person. um, and is learning to live amongst the uh, a human civilization of equal people of a variety of genders. I'm trying to say that in a way that makes sense, but you know what I'm saying, as opposed to where all the people have individual personhood, desires and needs, and they also have their characteristics that you can be attracted to or you cannot be attracted to, which is also important, which is Eurocentric body images and body standards, beauty standards, gender standards are fundamentally toxic, especially when they're being forced on other people. Like when African people are being fat shamed, or any people is being fat shamed, or people are having their hair talked about or being called unprofessional, which I hopefully people are starting to get that now, which is like people have different appearances and should be allowed to have those different appearances without having to alter their bodies to conform. Like I said, my mom still straightens her hair. My mom still straightens her hair because she is asked by her culture, because colonizer culture has asked her to straighten out and make her hair look white, basically. She's done lots of other things to alter herself. And it's like that she never should have had to do that. She's always had terrible body image and hated herself. She's like 70 something years old and she's still trying to lose weight. She's been trying to lose weight forever. Right? Rather than like enjoying food and like having her natural, like more curvy Hawaiian body. Because a lot of the Pacific Islander bodies, like a lot of bodies of people of African descent, they're curvier and they have more textured hair and etc. But my mom spent her entire life trying to alter herself anyway, so you see what I'm saying, where it's like people should, and so like people, that's part of the male gender role, is to expect and get and be entitled to sex from women, whichever one they want, when they want. The women's gender role is to just pretty yourself up, and everything you exist for is to doll yourself up all day for your man. That is the gender role. It's not just wearing lipstick, having long hair, making your eyes look and your skin look pretty, and wearing a dress. It's also the part of the gender role that you're playing is the being constantly in fear and being forced to be altering yourself to look how a man wants you to look. That's part of the role. That's part of the performance that you're doing, right? Because men aren't all day long thinking, oh, how can I be more beautiful and attractive for my wife? Like, it's not a thing that's in their head. They're like, I can just chill. I can check out, do whatever I want, look whatever I want. It's not that women don't have like sexual desires, although that's part of the gender role as well, which is that you can't ever have sexual desires as a woman. Only the men, right? Now that's not true, but that's the forced role that you have. That is the performance of Western gender, certainly conservative, but really not just that Western gender role of being a woman. You have no sexual desires. You have no, if you are attracted to something, you're only attracted to Chad, which is a lie. Giant muscly. I mean, I know this because I've been in and around, toxic Western male culture. And it's like, there's the thing like, oh, women only want to go out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like most women don't want to go out with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but then men and boys are being like told and presented and implied that that's who women want to go out with, but it's not. It's actually like the super muscular Arnold body is more of a gay guy. It's a male gaze. It tends to be more of that kind of body, but nobody's informed on any of this. You just asked to perform that. Like, you look like this, and if you don't look like that, then you're bad. And you, women, you look like this, and if you don't look like that, then you're bad. And when women, you like this, and men, like, where do you think all these incels get all of their ridiculous Stacy and Chad memes from? It's from Western culture. It's from, and it's from porn, which is part of American and Western porn is part of Western culture. This is what sex is. Sex is when you have like 14-inch dicks and it feels good. And the porn performers are performing their role in Western culture, going, men want to have giant 14-inch dicks because that helps sell billions of dollars worth of penis enlargement pills. And also covers up for the fact that, you're an inadequate man in a sense of being a complete human being, which is not something that Western culture ever wants to examine because it's patriarchal. Just get a bigger dick and spend $15,000 on that. And women, you should look like this and have sex like this, because if you don't have sex like this, then you're not a complete woman. And in fact, you need $50,000 worth of this particular type of surgery, which is Eurocentric beauty standards as well. And so everyone is, but the thing is, all of that is part of culture, right? Weird, messed up porn is not necessary. People survive without that. Women having to pretend like they don't have sexual desires and pretend like they're attracted to certain types of, that's not necessary. That's part of your performance as a woman in Western culture, right? That was part of Steven Crowder's wife's performance, is to pretend like Steven Crowder is an interesting, cool, funny, intelligent person. Because he's not. He's an absolute clown. But it's like, she's in the culture that's North American culture. And it's like, well, you just love your idiot, clown, boring ass, vanilla, bland, shitty husband. You just love it. You love him because you have to pretend like you do. And if you don't, well, just lie back and think of Keanu or whatever floats your boat, because that's what you got to do. Because you're a woman in North American culture and you have to fuck Steven Crowder because that's your job. Like lie back and think of England. Lie back and think of America. Lie back and think of Uncle Sam and think of your duty. Think of Jesus Christ and how much he's gonna love you in heaven because you fucked this boring, nothing, abusive, toxic shitbag called your husband. That's part of your gender role. That's not necessary. That's culture. Shitty, bad, boring, very, very short sex is Western culture. It's cis straight culture. Right? Vanilla, not having an orgasm is Western culture for women. Orgasmless women, orgasmless sex for women is Western culture. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. That's never been. Women could have orgasms at all times, and then they have in lots of places in the world. But you have to perform in bed your gender role, which is to sit back and pretend like that felt good when you got railed by whatever you got railed by for 15 seconds. Like that is part of the culture. That's not necessary. That's part of your gender role. It's oh yeah, well that's in private. No, but it's public though. Cosmo talks about it. When you're talking to your friends in your group of women friends, or the guys talking to the guy friends, I'm Mahu, so I'm like, I've mostly been in like more masculine circles. While I try to get away from those circles, certainly in most contexts, because of how toxic and shit they are. It's part of why as an indie game dev, I'm like not in the toxic, mainstream gaming culture, because it's so toxically masculine. But what you talk about, oh yeah, when she fucks, it's like, oh yeah, man, she's just screaming so much. Maybe she's screaming in pain. Maybe she's pretending to scream, and it's really sucks because you haven't like actually hit any clitoral or any of her genitals that are actually gonna give her any kind of pleasure. You just mostly cause pain. In fact, and then you fell asleep. And like that, but that's a male gender role, is to just like screw things and not care about other people's feelings and pleasure. I mean, that prepares you to manage a Fortune 500 company, be a pastor, a American politician that takes money and doesn't do shit takes pleasure and doesn't do anything for their constituents, or to be a general in the military. That terrible sex prepares you to be a business, corporate, or religious Western leader. As part of your gender role. It's really like, if you actually cared about your wife or your partner, your women, your female partner's pleasure and orgasm, that would actually harm your likelihood of getting employed gainfully in the West. Because caring is not conducive to capitalism and Western way. You're never gonna escalate the career ladder unless you're sociopathic. Literally, you're 10 times more likely to become a CEO if you're sociopathic and you have no empathy. If your empathy neurons are actually damaged and you have no capacity to feel for other people, you actually have a better likelihood of succeeding in the West. Statistically, like New York Times and CNBC have literally done these studies. So caring, and so sex is part of where your gender role is performed as well, and that's where you practice being terrible. So just one of many places. Also, the way you treat your children. If you treat your children like objects and uncaring, then that increases your life. Abusing your children makes it more likely that you'll become a millionaire. Is another way to think about it in the United States, because then your capacity to hurt, gaslight, and damage other people in an uncaring way, which you're going to do to all your employees, is then that is, it's kind of like serial killers with kids who abuse animals, and then they have a tendency to sometimes they have a likelihood of becoming a serial killer. I mean, it's like you could become a serial killer, or maybe you could just become a boss, or a president, or a mayor, or a governor, or a pastor, or a priest, or the Dalai Lama, or something like that, who also works with the United States and the CIA, right? you have the capacity to increase your power and prestige by performing your all aspects of your life, in the bed, in the household, in your marriage, in your community association, in your church, in your all groups. If you perform your gender role, the male one in particular, the way that you are asked to, it increases your gainful power and your career and your esteem and your wealth possibilities at every level when you move on in the world. Like in football, they teach you like you break the other guy's leg, right? Cheaters prosper. That's what they teach you there. That's part of your male Western gender role. Do whatever you got to do. Lie, cheat, steal, kill. So when the football player, it happened to me. When a guy like jumps and illegally breaks a rule and like breaks your leg by diving intentionally for the back of your knee and snaps your ACL, that's just practicing to be working for the CIA. When you're going to go cheat and steal, break rules, and get people killed all over the world to install far-right dictatorships to maintain imperial power. Or you might not become a CIA director. Maybe you just like work at a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A and have your 11-year-old children doing grueling labor, standing in front of a fire, getting themselves burnt, while your wife has terrible sex with you, as the small business owner of a Chick-fil-A in Oklahoma, which you can watch a video of. Literally farming out his children and all these little kids, working grueling hours for his little restaurant, and everyone's like, because all of Western culture and the guys are going, oh yeah, no, that's how you run your business, is you just abuse your own children, and other people's children, and your wife, like Steven Crowder. Anyways, that was some sex tips, but I didn't talk a lot about the Barbie. It's 1:14. So, what does it have to do with the Barbie movie though? So the Barbie movie, I don't know what it is 'cause I haven't seen it, so I don't like to say too much, right? But like in the trailer, a lot of it is kind of talking about, it's a comedy that is about, a lot of it is about satirizing certainly the Barbie franchise, but also, the Ken doll himself, right? Ryan Gosling, which is, he does what Barbie wants, actually. If you actually look very closely at it, Ken is he's kind of the guy who doesn't have much going on. Barbie is, Barbie in the Barbie movie is the, where is the picture? Barbie is the astronaut. Barbie is the flight attendant. Barbie is the soccer player. Barbie is a newscaster. Barbie is president. Barbie is all of these things, right? Ken, as Holly pointed out, Ken, what is he? Ken doesn't have anything going on. Not to say that's not good to have nothing going on, but maybe Ken has his own thing. Maybe Ken is a plumber, or Ken, is a small, maybe he runs an indie game cooperative or whatever Ken does, right? Unclear what exactly he does, but it's not about Ken, right? But Ken is Barbie's friend, right? Because they can't really be, they don't really have sex, like it's like Ken is Barbie's person that Barbie likes, and they don't know what to do with their parts, right? See, that's that's the gender role, is just not knowing what to do with your parts. No, that's just it's Barbie is a toy for young children. So, but Barbie's character is in there actually doing things, like as agency in the world. Barbie is Barbie's place, it's actually Barbie's place. Ken comes over to Barbie's place if you in the actual world of Barbie, and so and Ryan Gosling, as I commented earlier, has played characters like in The Notebook, right, etc. Not that these are not the best movies ever, and they have like there's some very problematic aspects of this is how I've commented. I have an entire song about Ryan Gosling called the I'm not even gonna say what it is because I don't want people to get disturbed, but the Ryan Gosling Pikachu song, but Ryan Gosling has played characters that were very much for the more for the women gaze, like in Notebook, like in even Blade Runner 2049. Well, Blade Runner 2049, he's playing basically a Ken doll, though, so, who is taking orders from a woman as well. And his characters historically, right? So it's like Barbie is almost like a self-parody of Ryan Gosling parodying his own characters in some sense, right? Because he's always been playing Ken dolls. Now he's literally playing a literal Ken doll made out of plastic. And so, it's important to remember that like the character that Barbie is, and again, I don't want to say too much because I don't know, I haven't seen the movie, but like what we can take away from it is that like women having their agency in the world, women being able to own stuff. Like Steven Crowder is upset, right? Just as another example, Steven Crowder was upset that his wife has the ability to divorce him. He's like, what? I didn't know women could leave their husbands, right? And it's like, dude, I mean, welcome to reality where in fact, what is it? The majority of divorces are initiated by the wives. Because guess what? It's a shitty patriarchal world and toxic, abusive husbands. And literally women could not have, there was no independence, financial independence even, outside of a man. Women were banned from having bank accounts even, right? The way Steven Crowder is controlling the car, like he has one car specifically, right? And it's like, you can't use that one because I don't allow you to, and you're not going to see any friends. You must do exactly what I say and be subservient, and you have to give this dog this medicine. You have to do all these things exactly how I say, because I'm the man, and that's you're the wife, and that's your duties. That's your position, is you have to do what I say when I say it. And whereas Barbie's character, Barbie doesn't need Ken, Barbie doesn't need Ken. Ken could be there or Ken could not be there. And and Barbie's like, well, Ken, if you are worth hanging out with and I enjoy your company, then you can hang around here. But I have a house. I'm financially independent. I mean, that's, as the president or the astronaut or the doctor or the lawyer or the firefighter, I do not need you, Ken. Like, if we have a mutually beneficial relationship and you are like, doing your part, and bringing something to the table that's worth my time, right? Then I will engage in time spent with you. And if not, then, well, take your yellow roller skates and zoom the fuck out of here. It's like, that's why people are like, I was recently listening to a bunch of like the newer, especially black women rappers, like I never actually listened to a lot of the Megan Thee Stallion and the Doja Cat. I just watched the Doja Cat, the cow video, which is freaking hilarious. The I'm a Cow Moo. I missed a lot of this stuff because of, I'm just old and sometimes out of touch. But, like in the Megan Thee Stallion song, it's like, Megan and Cardi and etc. It's like, it's like the TLC stuff, except I think TLC got destroyed because TLC's message was kind of like, women you don't need men. You don't need fucking scrubs around you with no job, with no nothing. You don't need these people. And then TLC like got ripped off where they had like almost all the money they were supposed to get paid got stolen, and they made like less than like 10% of the money they were supposed to make for their album. That went really big. But I think part of that was because, I will say like all men, not just even white men, were afraid of what she was saying. In the same way that Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, and everyone, especially white guys, they really hate, artists like Megan Thee Stallion who are like, you better have, I don't need no money, no nothing. It's like, you can plan your time into my schedule. I have a schedule. Like there's a song where it's like, this is my schedule and I got lots of other guys that could schedule in here. And no, I'm not having your baby. Like, I mean, if you want to have a baby, you have a baby. But I am Megan Thee Stallion. I'm worth like $200,000 an hour. If you want to apply for a position as somebody that I am seeing and possibly having sex with, then you can fucking get in line, you fucking loser. Like, you know, and so it's like, as opposed to, oh, just be a shitty nothing man and just yell at me and I'll fuck whatever you want. That's why like especially a lot of white guys and guys generally are scared. They're like, their wives are gonna see Megan like having her own career, being independent, having her own control of her own publicity. Unlike, unfortunately, like Britney Spears, thank goodness that she's been on a path towards getting off from under her abusive dad. That's another Britney Spears' abuse by her dad of her is another example of that's normalized Western child abuse, because a lot of people accepted that and kept giving him power, because white guys who are the most of the judges and run most of the things in Western American society said, oh, that's normal to just abuse your child or your wife, especially if they're a daughter or a wife. And it's almost like white man solidarity was to keep Britney under control for a long time. And Megan's like, fuck all y'alls. I have independently my own business. I have my own career. I don't need any guys. If you would like to try to have sex, you better come as an equal, or you're not coming ever. You can go come into your crusty, crispy fucking gym socks with your Mountain Dew Code Red. You know, you can go jerk yourself off over in their corner, buddy. Because I don't want no motherfucking scrub. So anyways, and, it's actually a good example, right? The Britney Spears relationship is the relationship that a lot of, not just Britney, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, a lot of performers have been in those kind of positions with record labels, right? I mean, dudes and women. I mean, it's an abusive structure. The way that the music industry functions is a reflection. It's another microcosm of Western culture, which is abused artists. I mean, we're talking to Holly. The kids were watching Somewhere Over the Rainbow and Wizard of Oz yesterday. And Judy Garland was, as Holly was talking about, was drugged and put on uppers and then downers when the business of the entertainment production business wanted her to be on, and then dropped her off put her on other drugs to put her back down. So there's a long history of this, right? But that is part of the control, which is like artists and performers have something that it's inside. It's a very specific thing where it's like they have something, the celebrity, their skills that lots of people want. It's like coltan copper, lithium, oil, or semiconductors, or chips that the U.S. can't get anymore, and they're crying to China, oh no, please don't fuck us up, and they're going to Japan and Korea, oh we need more chip. But but an artist that has skills in music and dance and their appearance and all that together, right, is kind of like the U.S. looks at it like oil, like in the Middle East, and they're like, we have to control that, right? The RIAA, Disney, even music industry, movie industry, they look at artists, right? The cartel, right? That is the entertainment corporate capitalist industry looks at those artists as oil fields that they have to control and contain and constrain with drugs, with economic, with gaslighting, with legal abuse and all these things to try to keep them in a space that they want them in, to keep making money for them and doing the same art. And there's a whole video about that in Black Mirror. It was Mary-Kate and was it Ricky, Kate, and Ashley too? I can't remember what it's called. It was a send up of that entire thing, and played by Miley Cyrus, kind of playing a Britney Spears like character with an abusive relationship with an aunt, not a father. But and the point is that so trying to keep artists and recording artists trapped is important, because they could become very powerful, very successful outside of the industry. And if they start saying things that are not conducive to whatever the richest capitalist wants, then that would not necessarily be good for the not just for that individual capitalist corporation, but also for all of a patriarchal, cis heteronormative society, like I said. And so I think that was part of what was going on, at least part of what was going on with TLC in the 90s. But that's something that is harder to control in the present, where social media allows you to, where women can build their own entire brands, jobs and careers outside of any man's or any corporate control that they have to work for and have to fall in line under. So anyway, that's just like another like tie-in. That's so in a certain sense, like, you know, that's a the way that Barbie is like in the universe is closer to the latter thing. Not, you know, and the movie is kind of, again, as I said, I haven't seen it, but it seems very comedic, and so I would say like that is actually, so as gender roles go, like number one, Ken is wearing pink, right? Ken is wearing a shirt that says Barbie. Like, Ken isn't like, Barbie, you have to come do my thing. Barbie, you have to show up and do my thing. But that's why a lot of guys are upset. That's why a lot of guys don't like that, because they want the women to be all about supporting and doing whatever the guy wants them to. I mean, as part of it is like, I'm the one that gets to have the career. You got to take care of all my kids, and you got to clean my house, right? And you got to do whatever the fuck I say. You are my secretary and my everything. And that is, you know, that's part of the toxic Western, or toxic generally gender roles that are the norm in Western society. I don't like this whole thing as, oh, this is not normal. This is not normal. I mean, this is not a positive gender role, but it's not fair to say that there's no patriarchy. There is no patriarchy where men are in charge in North America or, you know, Canada, or Steven Crowder's in Canada. This is bullshit. That is just the norm. Patriarchy is the norm, and Western culture, it's not even a legitimate country, because Canada is just a British colony, and so is the United States. They're just Anglo-Saxon. They're Anglo-Saxon tumors on sovereign indigenous territory, in fact. But you know, if you want to be real about it. So that culture is obviously, if the people in the United States of whatever color, they decided to actually, like, I don't know, take some cues from indigenous people's gender roles, which is like have more I don't know, I mean, they're different for each people, they're not all identical, but most of them, they have far more gender equality and or matriarchal societies all over Turtle Island. If the people in the US and Canada stop colonizing, genociding, stealing, poisoning the lands and the water, and trying to eliminate indigenous people, Native Americans and indigenous people in Canada, and learn something from them, maybe they might have sex once. You know, they might actually have a relationship again, because, you know, that's what time of day it is. You know, that's what time of year it is. That's what time of millennium it is. So, but anyways, and so I gotta be finishing because it's already 1:29. But you know, just finally on the and on the gender stuff, I think I've already pointed this out. So I think I pointed this out like maybe last stream, but in case I didn't, I mean, if you want to learn more about Hawaii specifically and the history of Hawaii and our gender, no, this is a whole long thread about Hawaii that I made that, you know, this thread has never gotten like quite this many people. You know, I make like one every week or 2 weeks, and this one is also blowing up. The Disney one blew up bigger, but it's, you know, it's got Disney. But I mean, this one is I started with the genocide, banning language or culture, poisoning of the water, devastating our universal health care, overthrowing our country, etc. And this thread is actually doing like very, very well. I actually met somebody from Madagascar who is also an indigenous Austronesian person, and lots of other people. There's Japanese people acknowledging the colonial occupation and genocide against indigenous people in Okinawa or Ryukyu. That was like, I hadn't seen that before. So there's definitely like a lot of changes, as I said, that are happening very rapidly, and if you want to learn more about specifically how Hawaiians related to the how people in Hawaii related to women. Well, for one thing, as I said, I am not a straight cis man, even though like I do know what it is to perform that gender, but this is me not performing that gender. This is me. This is my stop illegally occupying Hawaii and poisoning our water, and stop pushing anti-LGBTQ plus bills, and stop punishing kids for speaking Hawaiian face. That's what I look like when I say that to people. Maybe not always, but you know, that's what I look like in that picture. And so anyways, yeah, I am a non-binary, or also known as well, I'm a non-binary person. In the word would be the word in Western culture, or in Hawaiian it would be mahu, but that word does not directly translate into English, but it's kind of like a non-binary person. So sometimes I don't perform my male gender. I try not to, I don't feel like I perform male gender properly. I don't feel like I ever have. I feel like the Western male gender role, because I don't, I feel like actually like most of my jobs has been women professions. That might be the last. Maybe I forgot to make that point, but how the roles as professions in society, a lot of times are not necessarily separable, or some in other societies they are like recognized as kind of the genders and the clothing and how you are in the world is like part of what you're doing. And people who have a penis might be doing the carrying roles and wearing different clothes, right? Like Fa'afafine is one in Samoa. Because there's some roles that like, well, if a family had 3 boys and no girls, then one of the boys in Hawaiian or Samoan and other Pacific societies, one of the boys might take on the gender role of the women, and this, which suggests that there was a recognition that like what you're performing in the world and what kind of genitals you have in your pants is not the same, because it was just normal. But like, oh, we have 3 boys and we don't have anyone to do these roles, this teaching, this knowledge role, this weaving, or this cooking role. So one of you boys, the one who is most in tune and seems like you would like to do it, you will take on that role, and it's not a problem. It's not like, oh no, my son is gay and it's terrible. My parents actually said that. Like I tried putting on makeup one time when I was like 20. I was like 20, like about 20 years ago. And my mom was like, oh no, what if he's gay? We're Christian Catholic. And I said, well, mom and dad, if you guys were not genocided into being white American Christians who are homophobic and in a homophobic Catholic church, maybe you wouldn't have a problem with your son being gay, even if I was, which, I'm actually like, I feel like I might be, I'm like bi-ish. I'm definitely not cis though. I'm like definitely like non-binary, because I don't feel comfortable performing certainly the gender role that's assigned to me, certainly not much of the time. And so if Hawaii had not been colonized by Western culture, then it would not have been problematic in the family and even their house. My family could lose their house because they live on Catholic property in American colony. So it's literally to survive, they have to perform their American gender and their American homophobia and their American Christianity. Literally, that's who employs them and gives them their house. Who gives them their house, because the Catholic Church is part of colonialism and Christian Church is part of imperialism and genocide. So but in traditional society, it was recognized that, again, like I said, right, culture is the things that you do that you don't have to do, that this is a performance. This is not everything about who you are. It's not just like you have to look like this and you have to dress like this and you have to dance like this and move like this. You can change that if that doesn't feel like it's who you are. Even though you have like you're born with a penis or with a vagina, or you have this body shape and this shape, that's separate from who you are in both in the professions and the jobs you're doing, teaching, carrying things, and also like what you look like and how you choose to make yourself look. Now, certain things, like, again, functional things, ceremonial things, but like the society, indigenous Pacific society, right, Kanaka Maoli, and many others, did not have this like rigid structure of people born with a penis must look like this and they have to act like this, and it's also a very terrible way. And the people born with a vagina, they have to act like this and they have to be subservient, and if they ever changes, well, we will just burn them at the stake or kill them or subjugate them, and etc., as abominations. So that's not how we indigenous people related to gender and to sexuality, and to which was tied into the socialist communist societies that we had. We didn't have capitalism. We didn't have anything like that, right? We didn't have we're not like perfect society, but we did not have these kind of endemic, from the commanding heights, unjust hierarchies. And that was also reflected in the way that we related to gender roles, and sexuality. And also, thanks a lot, Big Teal. Did not know your parents. Yeah. But anyways, okay. So that's that's just a picture of me not performing the male gender role. That's a perfect picture of me performing my non-binary Mahu native Hawaiian indigenous gender. However, I feel like it at the time. It's also important that people, again, it's like this is a performance that is manifesting how and what I am like feeling like at that time. And I don't dress up. It takes me some time to get all up, dolled up like that. It's like, ask Holly. It took me a while last night. I was working on trying different styles and different colors, and it's like, different colors and different styles. It's like it takes time to figure out how they work with you and your body, your shapes, and your skin tones and stuff like that. But anyways, this is a whole thread about more on that. While the U.S. tries to erase trans people, remember trans, non-binary, gender fluid people are accepted in Hawaiian culture like Mahu, and play vital roles in our resistance against colonization and U.S. genocide in Hawaii. And so anyway, so there's a lot. If you want to go read more about that specifically, there's threads. I have threads within threads within threads within threads. Also, just on that as well. So there's some. It's Kamakani also streams on Twitch. Is another Native Hawaiian who is starting a live stream talk show about uplifting MVPFAFF. That's another. It's kind of like LGBTQ plus, but those are terms for non-binary gender type peoples, right, and queer peoples with specific names. I forget. Mahu is M is for Mahu though, and one of the F is for Fa'afafine, which is a Samoan non-gender conforming gender role. So that's what that MVPFAFF stands for. I forget who coined it. Somebody from, I think, Aotearoa, New Zealand. Anyways, so there's that. Speaking of gender stuff and gender roles, and yeah, don't forget you can also if you want to see Silver Spook violating Western gender roles, transgressing against the Western gender norms. You can see a lot more of that over here. Here, this is the other one. This must be a nice so this is my gender transgressing Megan Thee Stallion style comic strip. Okay. This must be a nice native non-binary hottie that I can take advantage of. Ha ha ha. Oh no, it's Silver Spook. She eats a-holes for breakfast while also being cute as fuck. Oh no. And then the colonizer bigot got eaten. And then number 3 is like, foolish cishet colonizer mortal. Well, it's time to repaint my nails and clean this Colin Nitwit's Captain Cook gore off of my blue hair and my pronouns. And then it's like, and now number 4, I do. So, I mean, I already talked about Megan. So this is me doing a Megan Thee Stallion in the She-Hulk movie move as a victory dance. Like there's that scene where Megan and She-Hulk are twerking. So this is in honor of twerking Megan and She-Hulk. This is my attempt. I do actually have retractable fangs, so don't fuck around with me. You know what I'm saying? I do. We do Captain Cook colonizers sometimes, around here, and we just eat. And I'm just kidding. It's too much high bigotry, cortisol content, and too much hydroxychloroquine content in this white man flesh. Not very good. I just like sever the head and just like leave it for the other animals. Anyway, so but yeah, I do have that entire. I have an entire thing. Also, I'm working on this cosplay. One day I'm gonna finish it, but anyway. So you can follow that, and also I have lots of fun things that I say about colonizers and how they can all fucking go to hell and stuff like that. Everything that we do here is also supported by the sales of course, Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk adventure game. Megan is a Shiro. I mean, yeah, I definitely like. It's like Megan, and there's like Holly has introduced me to a bunch of these Doja Cat and all these people. I was actually like listening to the song. I was like trying to like listen to the lyrics closely, and I was like, oh, this is like saying all this stuff. But anyways, so you can get Neofeud. It's a cyberpunk adventure game that I created. That is on itch and it is on Steam. That is about a lot of these topics, but it's more for cyberpunk adventure nerds, science fiction nerds, cyberpunk nerds. And video game players of all kinds, and it's but it is from my perspective as a Native Hawaiian person under U.S. occupation. And also there is it is on itch.io as well, and you can get it on sale, or you can also get it with maximum revenue coming to the creators, which is us. And also you can get other things like Decolonators, Indigistar, Pigeonwick Gun, and Woman. Speaking of women, because this is focusing on women and gender roles in Barbie, this is a book by Holly, who was raised in... A lot of this stuff is, Holly has helped to educate me on a lot of these things, because, I was socialized as male in a U.S. colony. So I was very Americanified by that. So a lot of this, especially when it comes to stuff to do with women and gender stuff, a lot of this has been discoveries with Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. Holly is my partner and also the moderator for streams. And Holly was raised in this culture, and this is a book from the perspective of Mary that is telling her side of the events in the Christian mythology there. But anyways, Holly is also can be found there. You can get it for free, or you can support us by giving a donation while you pick it up. And of course, if you don't play games or read books, well, I mean, you should probably read some books. Don't be like the United States that has 54% of the population unable to read above a 6th grade level. Read some books. Anyways, I forgot to say, speaking of reading books, next time I'll show, but our kids actually got the highest level in reading and in math, and like very high, basically like in the in the top 10 of the percentile in every group. And they got basically like 99% scores on their math, on their math, and in the top 90% on all the reading and language stuff. Or I think one was like 89%. But it's it doesn't really. This is a test, but long story short, the Silver Spoon Cooperative, we do homeschool and we teach our kids, and even in standardized Western testing, it's important. These kids were tested on a 1990s and early 2000s curriculum. It had literally questions about renting movies from Blockbuster and floppy disks. That's how bad the Western American schooling is. Their tests are using 1990, 20-year-old test stuff. I'm like, how the hell are my kids going to know what a floppy disk is? Like, if Bobby has 7 floppy disks and uploads 1 to 2 megabytes, they're like, what the hell are you using floppy disks for? It's 2023. But anyways, long story short, our kids did very well in math and reading. And so congratulations to Holly for teaching. And also I did some teaching too. I mostly did math and STEM, science, tech, engineering, math. But long story short, we don't do 6 hours a day of school, Also, teaching is historically, especially teaching young children, is a women a gender role, and like I've always done that kind of stuff. So I feel like in Western society, and I feel like it shouldn't be like that though. I mean, more dudes should do more child caring and teaching, just in general, and you can. I mean, or we can do it. I just want for people like, I don't know if we can school or we can teach. We're teaching our kids, and they're scoring well above everyone else. I mean, after all of COVID and the brain fog and the dropping test scores, our kids are probably scoring like way even higher than they were. They're probably like in the 99.9 percentile at this point with that. Because anyways, long story short, if you would like to take the classes from the Silver Spoon University, you can also support us at Silver Spoon Cooperative. And I have over 1,000 hours of content. A lot of it's on the channel, but I've tried to organize it according to topics like Hawaii, global geopolitics, economics, LGBTQ plus related videos, as well as threads and tweets and other text information that I've put out there. And so when you become a Patreon at any level, you get access to the Silver Spook University. You also get access to the Silver Spook Discord, where you can hang out with cool people that are our friends like Big Teal. And also you get access to behind the scenes work that we're doing and updates related to that. And and also you get to support Hawaiians under U.S. illegal occupation, colonial, ongoing cultural genocide, as well as poisoning our water. Support us doing this work and educational work that we do when you become a Patreon. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games at octagon.social or at Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social. On Twitter, you can follow at Silver Spook Guy and at Silver Spook Games for the games related stuff. And you can also follow on Instagram and Facebook, and there's also Terminus C. Terminus C is Terminus. As I say, what I do a lot of the day is game development. That's my main. I spend a lot of my time doing that. One part of my job is the gender role. That is, Mahu actually traditionally were teachers as well. So that's actually part of being a Mahu is to perform the role of teacher, and carrier of knowledge and wisdom forward, but also teaching, and like we're teaching the children, teaching Holly and Mai's children is part of that. But also another job I have is working on games like Terminus Cyberstar, which is a immersive sim in the vein of late 90s PC games like Deus Ex and System Shock. This game is currently nearly completed. They're supposed to be putting out some new videos soon, so I'm just waiting for that one. But if you would like to follow Terminus Cyberstar, it is available. And I'm the content director and writer for this game. Then you can follow it at Terminus C and join their Discord as well. Don't forget to follow Holly. If you want, Holly knows way more Barbie lore than I do. So if you want more about that specifically, you can follow at the Tech Fairy. Holly is a poet, educator, moderator, etc. and married to myself. So I feel like Holly is more queer in the sense of sexual orientation. Like Holly is definitely more bi than I am. I wouldn't say that I'm fully straight, but I'm definitely more attracted to women, I would say. But anyways, Holly is so it kind of works out whereas I'm much less cis and more non-binary in the sense of gender, my own gender, but then Holly is more bi in the sense of attracted to multiple genders, but then is basically the one female gender. So anyways, that's just an aside. So it works out really well for us. So anyways, so Holly is the moderator and also married to myself, producer and manager for Kate and Nick's TV, a show that has monthly interactive variety specials and weekly goblin gatherings. Holly also is a parent, caregiver to two Kiki or children in here at the Silver Spoon Cooperative. And yes, thanks everybody for your watching. Thanks for your support. And don't forget to we'll be back in the evening at around between 8 and 9 Pacific time. I'm not really sure what is the best time, but sometimes it's too early for me to get back on at 5 Hawaii time. But thanks to all these Patreon patrons. Thanks again to Big Teal for dropping in there. Always good to see you, Big Teal. And yeah, remember, keep your mirror stage polished. Be excellent to keep your Ken doll hot neon yellow roller skates polished. You know what I'm saying? And you have to, if you're gonna do comedy, don't do crappy right wing comedy. Like lampoon white dude gender norms, like is happening in Barbie and Western culture generally. I feel like Chris Pine's character and Chris Pine's characters and Ryan, a lot of stuff that Ryan Gosling has done is especially recently, is more in line with the gender roles that some dudes might pursue. I'm not saying don't be like the guy from Don't Worry Darling, but I mean he's like that movie is directed by women and is about criticizing that culture. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, one day I'll do a sex and relationship advice podcast, but not right now. Have a good time and we'll see you later.